A little too far with a comment. Speaker Milliken rose. He dropped his head, he raised his eyebrow, and he asked me to withdraw the comment. I'm a politician. I love debate. I love spice in this House. But I felt at that moment I had disappointed the Speaker. I had disappointed him. And I withdrew the remark. I did not want to let down my colleagues or this House or the people who had sent me here to represent them. The raising of an eyebrow. I say this because the Speaker's authority, the ability to provide leadership, to maintain order, to protect members' rights and privileges, to have credibility inside and outside this House, comes from members having trust and respect in not only the office of the Speaker, but in the Speaker herself or himself. Il faut plus qu'une apparence d'impartialité.
We need to go beyond an appearance of impartiality. We have to be impartial. We have to listen to both sides of the House. We have to have taken part in a number of roles. Irrespective of our party or our position, finally, this authority is not simply given to us because we understand parliamentary privilege, but because we protect it every single day.
Of course, rooted in competence, credentials, and character, but it's more than that. It comes from being calm in the midst of chaos, dispassionate in the heat of debate. It comes from humility, accountability, empathy. It comes from having a sense of humor that cuts through pretense and posturing and calms the moment.
It's not given us just because we respect both official languages, but because we live in both languages every day. My partner, over the last few years, my partner is a proud Quebecer who grew up in Rimouski. Not only is he my French professor, but he also helps me to better understand the Francophone reality in Canada, which is an asset to us all.
I hope to preside over Parliament with dignity, and I will say zero tolerance for behaviour that diminishes any one of us, with consistently applied consequences for unparliamentary behaviour, no matter where it comes from. As a former accountant, I hope to excel as the chief administrator of this place. And as former parliamentary secretary in foreign affairs, I hope to represent Parliament faithfully and carefully around the world and in Canada. I believe I can do all three of these key roles. In my role as an other kind of minister, I led congregations across Canada, leading people in good times and bad, breaking down barriers that divided people, and attempting to lead them in common purpose. People have often asked, what's the difference between being an MP and clergy? I pray more now. But I don't want to pray. I want to do something about it. I would like to be your speaker. I'd like to be the custodian of the chair that belongs to you. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much for your support. Given that you referred to my career, when I was elected in 1984, there were no cell phones, there was no internet, and there was no fax. It was paradise. It was great. I will now call upon Mrs. Sherry Romanado, the Honourable Member for Longueuil-Charles-le-Moine, to address the House for not more than 5 minutes. Mr. Speaker, it's with humility and a lot of respect that I stand today as candidate to the Speakership of the House of Commons. To members who are back, welcome back. It's great to see so many familiar faces. To new MPs, welcome. Every single one of us have won the trust and gained the trust of our constituents so that we can respect their views. Irrespective of our region, our party, or our point of view, we are united in our duty of serving democracy with integrity We must also defend its institutions. It's no easy feat to be Speaker of this House where these diverse voices assemble, sometimes as a cacophony, but always with passion. The Speaker has a solemn responsibility, that is to preserve the dignity of Parliament, to guarantee the equity of debate, and, what might be the most difficult, make sure that 343 very intelligent people with very different opinions respect more or less the calendar of Parliament. The Speaker is not partisan. It is fundamentally based on principles, with equity and a staunch defence of everyone's privilege. If I get the trust of this House, I will treat everyone with respect and impartiality, knowing that democracy does not develop when we all agree, but when we all hear and listen to one another.
Parliamentary experience as Parliamentary Secretary, Deputy Leader of the Government, Chair of the Standing Committee on Industry, Science and Technology, and probably the only member who actually asked to sit on the Procedure and House Affairs Committee. As a fellow elected representative, I understand the demands of public service and the pressures we all face. But I also believe that impassioned debate and decorum are not mutually exclusive. The Speaker fulfills several key responsibilities: presiding over debates and ensuring the enforcement of rules and the preservation of order and decorum, acting as Chief Administrative Officer of the House, and representing the House in its external relations. Of these, the one I've heard the most about in my conversations over the past weeks is the preservation of decorum. On this, let me be very clear. I will be fair, firm, and consistent. The standing orders in the House of Commons procedure and practice offer a solid framework to guide our work. And with nearly a third of members joining the House for the first time, it is especially important that the Speaker provide guidance, clarity, and support. Expectations must be clearly communicated, and when rules are not followed, corrective action must be taken. In this regard, I've demonstrated my ability to lead impartially and keep order as the chair of the Indu Committee. My two sons will attest to my near obsession with rules and order. In fact, they both voluntarily enrolled in the Canadian Armed Forces at age 16, believing that even the military was bound to have fewer rules than at home. But above and beyond rules, the tone and culture of this place matter. In these times of uncertainty, when trust in institutions is being tested, we must renew our commitment to civility, transparency, and respectful dialogue. Canadians are watching us, especially young Canadians. Our children and grandchildren are paying attention to how we speak to one another, how we handle disagreement, and how we uphold the principles of democracy. Let us give them something to be proud of. Je crois également en un...
I believe in a modern, accessible parliament as well, one that adopts new technologies, reflects Canadians' realities, and includes both tradition and innovation. Parliament needs to change to adapt to the present moment, while also maintaining its foundations that have been serving us for generations.
I do not see the role of Speaker as a one-way street. It must be one that encourages a constant flow of ideas, viewpoints, and suggestions on how we can make this institution stronger, and how we can make it work better for all members, and ultimately for the people we are all here to serve. This is, after all, their house. Ma vision est celle d'un Parlement qui reflète le...
I have a vision of a parliament that reflects the best values that we have as Canadians, the best of what we are as Canadians and what we defend as parliamentarians. If I have the honor of being elected as Speaker, I will fully commit to this mission with equity, consistency, and fairness. Thank you very much.
I will now call upon Mr. Francis Scarpaleggia, the Honourable Member of Lac Saint-Louis.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Moi également, j'aimerais...
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Oh my
I
God,
would
yep
also
in the
like to mention
background.
that today we are gathered.
I'm
on
sorry,
the...
I just have to say, I can't believe she got reelected.
A little over 20 years ago, I was seated in this House for the first time. In the farthest back row.
20 years ago. It was a proud moment, which is why I would like to offer a special congratulations to all newly elected members who are taking their seats for the first time today. Whether we are in the first rows or the last row, like the old Montreal Forum, there are no bad seats in this arena. Nous sommes tous égaux ici. Nous avons tous partagé le même parcours.
We are all equal here. We have all done the same thing.
Have all traveled the same road and faced challenges and come up against obstacles on the way to earning the honor and privilege of being the voices of our constituents in this Parliament. Canada's greatest asset is its democracy, and democracy lives and breathes here in this chamber. La démocratie ne s'arrête pas au jour du scrutin.
Democracy doesn't just stop on the day of the vote. Democracy is constantly evolving, and it lives in this chamber. And ultimately, it is the quality of our democracy that represents the strength of our country, the strength of our nations, communities, provinces, and regions that together form our Canadian society.
It is rightly said that there can be no true freedom without order. Likewise, we can't have a truly meaningful exchange of ideas without an orderly, rules-based House of Commons. Now, there's nothing wrong with a clean, even board-rattling, polemical body check in the corners. I've been at the receiving end of a few. Robust debate is fundamental to a robust democracy, and a robust democracy is what makes for a resilient nation. The problem is when sticks go high. Canadians want to see sticks. Canadians want to see, though the elbows are for others, not for us.
Oh, yeah?
Canadians want to see sticks on the ice, and it's the responsibility of the Speaker to make this so. Colleagues, I'm an optimist. I believe it possible to skillfully and convincingly dissect and refute an argument without recourse to personal invective or intimidation. I have seen all colleagues from all parties achieve this standard. Over 20 years of parliamentary experience has prepared me for the challenge of finding the right balance between respect and order on the one hand, and vigorous debate that clarifies the issues on the other. J'ai fait le tour, collègues. En 20 ans.
Colleagues, I've had a great deal of experience in different roles. Over the last 20 years, I've been on both sides of the House, 10 years in opposition, including at a time when the future of my party seemed uncertain, and 10 years in total on the government side. I know both sides of the coin, and I'm very aware of the needs of colleagues on both sides of the House. We need to remember that the Speaker is also an administrator, leading operations and services on the Hill. After my 20 years of experience, I have a deep knowledge of all aspects of the administrative apparatus of the Hill and of its regulations.
Colleagues, we have a duty to Canadians and to ourselves, a duty to cultivate our parliamentary democracy in an increasingly turbulent world where many argue that democracy is just too inefficient and time-consuming. Canada has always been about values. It was the will to affirm a distinct set of values on the upper half of the North American continent that led to the creation, against all odds, of this confederation of founding peoples and nations and diverse and proud regions. Our neighbor to the south may be modern-day Rome in size and power. We are Athens in culture, values, and democracy. That is how we must see ourselves. That is who we must be. Thank you, colleagues.
Before I suspend the sitting for 30 minutes, permettez-moi de dire
I would just like to say to the entire team of volunteers that enabled me to be elected for the 13th time, I'd like to thank them for this prestigious chair. And I'd like to also thank my entire family and this speaker's throne that I love very much. Well, I'll have to lend it to the king tomorrow. What a thing to think about. But he will, of course, be welcome. It will be on the Senate throne, in fact. Now, I will just say that the bells will ring for only 5 minutes. Now, the sitting is suspended.
Okay, while they suspend, we'll go and turn back a little bit, turn back the clock. I want to see what happened. So there's a good thing we didn't even start early this morning because they were at the Senate chamber for like the first hour. Like they weren't even, it wasn't even, see, then they all came in from the Senate chamber and they walked over to Parliament. But yeah, it's a good thing I started later. So Sean Casey spoke, Fergus spoke. Fergus actually misspoke during his speech and kind of insulted himself. It was hilarious.
J'invite maintenant Monsieur.
I now ask Mr. Greg.
So while they're in recess for just a few minutes, let's just watch this because this is kind of funny.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I'd like to recognise that we are on the unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. Since time immemorial, Indigenous peoples have met here to exchange, to share, and to collaborate. That is what Canadians expect from us here in the House of Commons. Today, a similar spirit assembles us. Some of us for the first time, some since 1984. I was elected Speaker in the second half of a minority parliament. When I was elected, I promised to be a collaborative and well-thought Speaker, a Speaker that would serve all parliamentarians.
Tempers ran high and cooperation was low. It was in that context that I learned the ropes of the job, often getting it right, and when I didn't, putting in place measures to continually improve. To be frank, it would have been a difficult time for anyone in that role. We find ourselves in a new minority parliament. A new parliament is a new beginning, but we don't have to start at the beginning. Although I continue to stand by my values for mutual respect between members, the business of Parliament must get done. With transparency, with integrity, with accountability, and without gamesmanship. This is what Canadians expect from us. At my first question period, I asked you to treat me like a new car. Try not to get a dent on me on the first day. Well, I got one day. There are now a couple of dents, but I'm still running. I'm now a reliable car with experience.
I wouldn't say that.
And that's how I learned what all speakers eventually discover. You don't become speaker by just putting on the robes. You learn the role through experience. Les habits ne fait pas le président.
It's not just the gown that makes you Speaker. You become a Speaker with experience. That experience I've already obtained, and now I want to implement it for this 45th legislature. Presiding over debates in this House is the most visible part of the role. However, the Speaker also has a very important diplomatic role to play.
Canada needs friendships around the world. From the early days of my speakership, I insisted that Canada show our solidarity with Ukraine. And I'm proud to have organized an all-party parliamentary mission to Ukraine. During the long train ride into Ukraine under the cover of darkness, with the protection of the Canadian Armed Forces, seated with my colleagues from the Conservatives, the Bloc, the NDP, and the Liberals, working together, We developed lasting friendships with Ukrainians and strengthened their
What
network
does Ukraine
of
have to
support
do with the speaker?
in their time of need. This is another example of Parliament at its best. Plus que jamais,
More than ever, Canada needs strong friendships everywhere. Throughout the world, I have forged strong ties of friendship to put forward our Parliament's interests. This experience will serve for the success of the Speakers G7 meeting that will happen later this summer. Another role of the Speaker happens here. As the CEO of about 2,500 members of staff, I support the services that support your rights and privileges as parliamentarians.
money was well spent. We took steps never taken before. We started a new audit process. We implemented robust new security measures in and around Parliament Hill, in your constituencies, at your offices, and at your home. And we did this so that you and your family can feel safe while you do your job. C'est riche de cette expérience.
It's with this wealth of experience that I ask for your support for my re-election. I gained the experience necessary to implement changes that are essential starting today.
Dense, but it also has character. The engine is strong, and I know the road. Allons-y, let's go together. Merci beaucoup. Miigwech.
I will now call upon Mr. Robert. Pardon, on est rendu où, c'est vrai? Oh, excusez-moi. Je vais inviter.
I will now call upon Mrs. Alexandra Mendez, the Honourable Member for Brossard-Saint-Lambert, to address the House for not more than 5 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Sorry, my mic was muted. Yeah, I think we already listened to her. So let's check to see if they're back live, because we just went back a little bit there. House is suspended for 30 minutes. You said 3 minutes. What do you mean? 3 minutes and now they're taking 30? What do they need to do? They're not even voting. Okay, well, let's go back and watch her then. Where was she? Oh, they had a block. They had a Conservative member speak, did they? Because he's Conservative, yeah. Why did he speak there? I missed this.
But who does not want to stand for election, to rise and inform the chair accordingly.
West Wellington.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Doyen de la Chambre.
Thank you very much, Dean of the House of Commons. It is great to see you preside over this for the 7th time. I wish to withdraw my name.
For Speaker. Thank you.
Oh, why did we withdraw him? He would have been a good speaker.
The Honourable Member for Acadie.
A good speaker knows when to keep their speeches short. Can you withdraw my name from the ballot, please?
Wow, all Conservatives withdrew their name? Why did they withdraw their names?
We will revise the list of candidates.
Did anybody else
I've
withdraw?
already here in the House.
Pursuant to Standing Order 3, I invite Mr. Plamondon, member for Bécancour-Nicolette-Sorel-Alnobac, to take the chair as member presiding over the election of the Speaker. Conformément à l'article 3 du règlement, j'invite Monsieur...
Pursuant to Standing Order 3, I invite Mr. Plamondon, member for Bécancour-Nicolette-Sorel-Alnobac, to take the chair as the member presiding over the election of the Speaker.
Oh, I thought he was from the Senate. He's from the bloc? Interesting. I thought they had the Senate speaker in there. I mean, to be fair, he does look like he could be in the Senate. More conservative to vote against libs. I guess so. I guess. I mean, the speaker still gets to vote. Like, Greg Fergus still gets to vote, or used to get to vote when he was speaker. So,
Et à tous,
Why are there so many withdrawals? I don't know. I don't know why they withdrew their
à vous
votes.
tous qui avez...
I would like to congratulate all of you on your election. It's very important. We are all elected here because we believe in democracy and we support it. Congratulations again to all of you. I see that there are many new members. Maybe one of you will one day beat my 41-year standing record. And for all younger or newer MPs, I'd like to repeat a piece of advice that I've already given here in the House. It is important to manage your emotions, especially frustration. Some asked me why I'm not a spokesperson, why I was never a minister. Well, sometimes we experience frustration, but we get over it over time. A second piece of advice for new members: only speak when you have something intelligent to say.
Vous savez,
Let me explain. I'm saying this in French because if I were to say it in English, I would also need translation, as I do when I speak French. In this place, we have the best journalists in Canada. When they interview us, they don't interview us for no reason. You need to be very well prepared because if you say one wrong word, it can change the course of your career sometimes. I'd like to share an anecdote that I've already shared with previous MPs. I was first elected in 1984. When I was a brand new MP, I made 3 statements which went against what my party believed in. At our first caucus meeting, a senator who seemed very old to me, now I think back on it and he doesn't seem so old, he said to me, "Come and see me after the caucus meeting." I went to see him in his office. We had a very short meeting. He said, "Look at the wall." And on the wall, he said, "Do you see what I have on my wall here? This is a fish, a dead fish, and if he had just shut his mouth, he would still be alive."
I like this as opening
il a
remarks.
ajouté en politique, c'est
He said, "Well, in politics, it's the same."
un peu en anglais.
Now I'm going to speak English.
Have received by email last night the list of candidates for the speakership. The list of numbers who have withdrawn and the list of numbers who have ineligible as candidate. This list are also available at the table and are on our commons if members will to consult them before the vote. Avant de procéder,
Before we begin, I want to invite any member whose name is on the list of candidates but who does not want to stand for election to rise and inform the chair accordingly.
Okay, so we saw this, and then this is when the Conservatives withdrew their remarks. Sean Casey spoke. Fergus spoke. This other Liberal spoke. Another Liberal. Another Liberal. Bunch of backbenchers. Another Liberal. And then the House went in recess. So that's basically all that's happened so far in Parliament. And what we've been in recess so far for little over 10 minutes, about 13 minutes. So they still have another halfway point. While we're waiting for Parliament to resume, so another 15 minutes or so, I'd like to watch Pierre speak from yesterday, because I actually didn't watch this, him addressing caucus.
Start before we do anything else with a couple of routine items. We have to make sure,
very loud.
First of all, that the mic level here is good. So now who is confirming that for me? Matt, I saw you earlier. Seem okay from your perspective? It's all.
Merci beaucoup. Wow. What a guy. Congratulations, Jonathan. 12-vote victory. He won one of the most efficient election victories ever. Some of you guys win by 20,000 votes. Very inefficient. Jonathan did it with 12. He wanted to keep us in suspense for a few days before bringing the news. But of course, Jonathan and the team in Newfoundland, we delivered our best result in that province in 2 decades, part of a stronger and bigger nationwide Conservative team that added 2.4 million votes, 24 seats. News of the recount in Newfoundland strengthens that and points to the fact that we've expanded our coalition to include union workers, young people, newcomers, and others who had never voted before. They voted for hope, for a change. And while we narrowly missed forming government, we now have every duty to fulfill that hope and fight for that change. And that change means a Canada that is affordable, safe, self-reliant, and united. And those are our priorities for this session of Parliament. And priorities take plans. Our plan, first, we've got to get the cost of living down. And we're going to be demanding a spring budget that reveals the true deficit, lowers spending, taxes, and inflation. Second, to get homes built by cutting taxes and red tape on construction. Third, to restore economic independence by unleashing our businesses and our resources. Fourth, to bring safety to our streets by locking up dangerous offenders and securing our borders. And fifth, speaking of our borders, we need to get immigration under control after a decade of Liberal incompetence. Merci beaucoup tout le monde. Cette semaine, le Parlement est de retour avec une équipe plus grande et plus forte. On a obtenu 2,4 millions plus de votes et 24 plus de sièges. Pour la toute première fois, les travailleurs syndiqués, les jeunes, les nouveaux arrivants et notre groupe de gens qui n'avaient jamais voté auparavant se sont joints à notre équipe et ont voté pour nous. Ils ont voté pour l'espoir et pour le changement. On est passé tout près de former le gouvernement, mais maintenant, on a le devoir de se battre pour du changement et donner de l'espoir aux Canadiens. Ce changement veut dire un Canada plus abordable, sécuritaire, autonome et uni. Pour avoir des priorités, il nous faut un plan. Donc, le plan que nous allons avancer au Parlement, c'est de 1, forcer le gouvernement de prendre l'abordabilité au sérieux, avec un budget ce printemps qui relève le véritable déficit, qui révèle le véritable déficit. 3, et 5, a slogan. Well, Mr. Carney told us all that, he said, I'd like to say it again and again, that a slogan is not a plan. Well, I point out that is a slogan, but but I'll tell you what a plan is. A budget is a plan. It's literally a plan. And first, his finance minister said there would be no budget this year for the first time outside of COVID in approximately 2 decades. Then the Prime Minister came out and said, well, there will be a budget, but it will be in the fall when half of the fiscal year is over. How do you budget for something that has already happened? Maybe they think that budgets will balance themselves. We need a budget to cut bureaucracy, consultants, foreign aid, and corporate welfare to generate the savings for lower debt, taxes, and inflation. For too long, workers and small businesses have carried this morbidly obese government on their backs. They can't afford it. They can't bear it anymore. Lowering the cost of government will lower the cost of living. We must unburden our hardworking people so that they can go further and reach higher. With stronger buying power and lower taxes, our incredible workers and entrepreneurs will have their work rewarded, their purchasing power preserved, and our economy strengthened. And speaking of our economy, our second priority is economic independence for Canada. We all want a permanent end to tariffs with the U.S., and we will work with the government to help make that happen. I've already told the Prime Minister that we are happy to cooperate any way we can to bring about an end to this unnecessary dispute and restore our not just our sovereignty, but also tariff-free access to the most successful international trading arrangement in the world. And we can't help but note that the Prime Minister promised during the election that he would put his elbows up and apply dollar-for-dollar tariffs that would raise tens of billions of dollars. Now, let's be clear. He said that it would raise $20 billion this year alone, and he published that in a platform released after he had quietly eliminated most of those tariffs. So how is he going to make up the money? And why did he put his elbows down when he said they were up? Look, despite the Prime Minister's doublespeak, we will work, as I said, to help him try and get a trade deal to put an end to the tariffs. But we also need to focus on making our own economy more independent and self-reliant so that we're no longer vulnerable to such international surprises. That means unleashing our industry and its mighty workers to make things here for ourselves and for overseas markets. It's not enough to say you want to build. The government must remove the laws, taxes, and rules that stand in the way. And that's why Conservatives are proposing practical and real removal of obstacles, and the industrial carbon tax, the energy caps, the electric vehicle mandates, the No New Pipelines law, the West Coast shipping ban, and more. If the government agrees to these changes, we will move as early as the spring to pass them all. They have our word. Let's remove the obstacles. Let's harvest our resources. Let's make Canada truly independent. Doing so will allow us to be self-reliant from the U.S. by building mines, pipelines, nuclear and LNG plants, hydroelectric dams, and so much more. We must be the fastest place in the OECD to get a building permit, and we must have the lowest taxes on work, investment, energy, and home building. And speaking of home building, that brings us to our third priority. Conservatives will fight to free up land, speed up permits, and cut taxes on buyers and builders. We must restore the dream of home ownership that has been lost over the lost Liberal decade. And nous voulons que ces maisons soient dans les communautés sécuritaires. We want those houses to be in safe neighborhoods. We want those homes to be in places where children can play outside, where seniors can enjoy a walk, where the cars don't go missing in the middle of the night. And that is why this session we will fight to end catch and release bail, house arrest, multiple murder discounts. We'll push for treatment and not drugs to free our loved ones from the clutches of addiction. We want a drug-free Canada where people can get back on their feet and have hope. And we want to restore sanity to our immigration system. We must end the out-of-control Liberal immigration by reducing numbers, capping population, deporting criminals, and integrating newcomers. Canadians are a welcoming people, but our healthcare, housing, and job markets are now overflowing because population growth has been too fast under the Liberals. We must also ensure integration. We must ensure that foreign conflicts are left at the door. No more rampaging anti-Semitic riots on Canadian streets. So once again, our 5 goals for this session: bring down the cost of living with a budget that cuts spending, taxes, and inflation; boost home building by cutting taxes and regulatory red tape on construction; third, unleashing resources and businesses to free our economy from dependence on the U.S. Fourth, restore safety on our streets by repealing Liberal laws, locking up repeat offenders, and securing our borders. And fifth, getting immigration under control. These are our goals, but our mission can be summed up in one word: hope. De l'espoir pour les Canadiens qui travaillent fort. On va être leurs champions. Leurs préoccupations sont les nôtres. Leurs causes sont nos objectifs. Ils comptent sur nous. Ils croient en nous. Ils ont voté pour nous pour un meilleur avenir. When we expose liberal failures, when we argue about policies, we don't do it just to hold the government to account. We do it because we want things to get better. When we act as a government in waiting, we do it to provide the hope that things can and will get better in a future conservative government. We will present ourselves as a government in waiting to ensure that people know that that hope remains, the hope that our youth will one day be able to move out of their parents' homes and into their own, start a family in that new home with happy problems, like having to get out of the car when you get home from work to remove the hockey net so you can get the car into the garage. Knowing that kids were playing safely there after they got home from school, and that they will be in the House of Commons procrastinating about their homework. The families that need hope that their fridge can be full without their bank account being empty. The hope that seniors can return to that evening walk they used to so much enjoy until crime and danger interrupted it. The hope that our trades workers can again earn six-figure jobs, digging mines, building pipelines, and constructing homes that other people can afford. The hope of restoring a country that takes care of its own, stands on its own 2 feet, united under one flag in the freest country on earth. The hope that the strivers, the battlers, the fighters, the ones who scrape by and fight on, the ones who get knocked down, but get back up and never quit and keep pushing forward. They won't give up, and neither should we. We are their champions. Their worries are our concerns. Their cause is our purpose. They are counting on us. They believe in us. They put their hope on us, and we will fulfill that hope for our people, for our country, for Canada, now and forever. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup tout le monde. Thank you.
Okay, so House is still in recess for another 5 minutes, it looks like. Let's go ahead and double check. Yeah, they're still in recess, and it looks like they went on the half hour, so they've got about 5 minutes left, and then they'll be back. Should be voting at that point right after they get back. I don't know why they just can't vote now, but I guess they need to take a little half-hour break after working for an hour, you know. Kind of ridiculous. I know a bunch of people are saying in the chat, too, that, oh, they get summer off, they get summer off. They always get the summer off, which I don't agree with. I think the House should sit more than it does. But it's not like they changed the schedule or anything, or Carney changed the schedule. That's typical. They always get 3 months off in the summer. It's not really time off. It's constituency time. They're supposed to be speaking with their constituents, but that's just how it is. So yeah, we're just waiting for the House to resume. Pierre's writing was interference at its finest. I mean, he did have like a ridiculous amount of people to fight against. I thought that was like 70 plus or 90 plus people or something on the ballot. I've never seen that before. Good to see you guys in the chat, by the way. You know, a lot of faces coming back. Again, we still just got another 3 minutes here until House resumes. I would put on something else, but there's really nothing else to watch. Honestly, I think the Libs have proverbial carnage, tiger by the tail, and know they're affected. He must have some big-time dirt on them, especially the ones that came back after retiring. I mean, yeah. I mean, I just think he's you know, he's not like an untypical liberal. So all the liberals are going to be very typical in how they act. So at least when he reelects, when he asked for people to come back that he knew would kind of just do whatever he says, then even if it means sliding the books a little bit, then he was happy to bring them back. Erskine crashing out on X was glorious. Yeah, I know that was hilarious. I thought that was super funny. And then he went on CBC and he was pissed off about he was saying the same thing. He's like, oh, I feel frustrated that I didn't get reelected to cabinet. It's like, man, you were in cabinet for like 3 months. House wasn't even sitting at that time. You were probably the shortest lived housing minister ever. Northern Perspective has a great petition that will be read in the House of Commons to change the election to stop having the longest ballots from happening. Sounds like a good petition. All right, House is resuming. They're done with their coffee break. Speaking of a coffee, I need to grab another cup of Joe while we're waiting here.
Monsieur le Premier ministre.
Order.
Conformément aux dispositions du...
Pursuant to the standing orders, the House will now proceed to elect a speaker.
D'une présidente. Alors, veuillez vous asseoir. Il faut qu'il enlève la... Okay. Les noms des candidats éligibles.
The names of the eligible candidates for the election are listed on the ballot in alphabetical order.
Okay, so we're going to get to a vote.
Ah oui, c'est...
Il faut inspecter la boîte d'abord.
After the clerk has opened the envelope containing the ballot, I will suggest a method of proceeding which will help to accelerate the voting process.
Look at Freeland. I can't believe she got reelected.
What's that? Nous allons maintenant commencer à voter.
We are now prepared to begin to vote according to the provisions of Standing Order 4.
Allow me to outline the procedure for all honorable members. The names of the candidates for the election are listed on the ballot in alphabetical order. To vote, you must rank the candidate in the orders of preference, placing the number 1 in the space next to your first choice candidate, the number 2 next to your second choice candidate, and so on until you have ranked all candidates for whom you wish to vote. Please note that it's not necessary to rank all candidates. Vous pouvez voter à un seul candidat.
You can vote only for one candidate if you want.
Pour aller voter.
In order to vote, I will ask that members leave their desk, exit through the curtains, and come to the table using the doors on the left and the right of the chair on the respective side of the House. A clerk will issue to each member a ballot paper. After casting their ballot, honourable members are asked to leave the voting area. The polling booths are now open to vote. Members may proceed.
I swear, if they re-elect Greg Fergus for Speaker... Colleagues. LeBlanc, Freeland, we got Miller, where's Sean Fraser? He usually sits over here somewhere. Same Liberal cabinet. What is Gould doing now? Does she still sit in the House? Yeah, she got re-elected, but she's not a cabinet minister, and she's not leader of the House on the Liberal side. So you probably won't hear much of Karina Gould anymore. Where's the Speaker? We're electing one right now. That's what they're voting on. On another note, I'm happy we got Brockinator here. We got Barrett. Genuous got reelected. Lots of Wilkinson. We got lots of good Conservative MPs coming back. Does the Speaker have any power? They just basically run the House. They do have the power to withdraw questions and stuff like that during question period, but I don't know, what kind of power are you asking about? Yeah, I mean, if you're a Conservative voting, you're really just picking which Liberal Speaker is going to be, out of all of them, which shitty pick are you know what I mean? For the Conservatives, these are all shit picks. You're just ranking which is least shittiest, I guess. I don't know. When does the mace get installed again? You mean the gold mace, right, that sits there usually? I believe they bring it in on... It's actually a good question. I don't know if they bring it in after the Speaker or they bring it in tomorrow. Because on today's agenda and on the House of Commons website, it just shows election of the Speaker. So I'd assume that's the only order of business today. Like, we're not getting, they're not going to do question period today after this or anything like that. The only order of business for the House today is literally just this. I think this is all they have to do. Where's Lizzie the lizard? They usually, Green sits over on this side. They sit beside the Liberals usually, somewhere over here. Did Carney vote on this? He's probably remotely voting. Or actually, no, because this is all in-house. You can't remotely vote, I don't think, on this. Who is voting on what? We're voting for the Speaker. Speaker of the House. And these are all Liberal names at the bottom. Yeah, there is no question period today. What happened to Fergus? He's on the ballot. He's right there. He's the second name. Why isn't Carney there? Where is Carney today? Let me double check. I don't think he's in Ottawa. Oh no, he is in Ottawa. It says he's supposed to be here on his agenda. It says he's supposed to be in the House today. It says he's supposed to be voting on this, then he's doing a cabinet meeting. And then he goes to, around 1 o'clock, he goes to welcome the King, get off the plane and come into Canada, because the King's speaking tomorrow. And then they do a bit of a media pool, where the King's going around and talking to people in Ottawa first today. So Carney will join for that. There'll be a media scrum there, too. He's basically spending the whole afternoon with King Charles. But it says on the agenda that Carney's supposed to be here today. I don't see him. I haven't seen him in the House at all yet. Apparently, the King doesn't arrive till 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so he doesn't arrive for another 2 hours. I mean, unless his plane arrived early, but I mean, usually that stuff's pretty on time. But, yeah, I haven't seen Carney here at all in the House. You know, it's one interesting note. Nobody talks about this. Our Prime Minister has a, like an itinerary, right? So you can go see what the Prime Minister is doing all day. And Justin Trudeau was the one who kind of brought it back, where he cut his itinerary only to that. Like, it would only get released that morning. He wouldn't release anything ahead, like what he's doing for the week. Oh, there's Carney. Carney's right there. So Carney is in the House. But I think Carney saw that with Trudeau and went, oh, I don't want to tell people what I'm doing tomorrow or Wednesday or whatever. I'm just going to keep that. So Carney's kind of doing the same thing Trudeau is hiding what he's doing for the rest of the week so people don't show up and, like, have a whole big crowd of haters. Yeah, I didn't see Carney sitting earlier, so I guess he's just walking in for the vote, and then he's leaving. Because that's what it says. It says he's only showing up for the vote, and then there's a Liberal cabinet meeting right after this. So I would assume that Parliament is done right after this election. Once they pick a speaker, that's gonna be it. Doesn't want haters to hate. Yeah. So that's who's bringing the baby in Parliament. We always wondered what was that baby crying in the back. It's that Bloc MP. Does Pierre vote too? No, because he's not an MP. Will we know after the vote who wins? Yes. There's Carney. Yes, the king is coming because we're in the Commonwealth, and he always has to speak from the throne, which is in the Senate, when a new parliament opens. But I hear King Charles is doing really bad. Like, I hear he's got, like, cancer and stuff like that, and his health is extremely deteriorating, like, month by month. So I'm surprised that they're actually, like, the UK monarchy is actually sending him, because I'm pretty sure he's in a really bad state. Who is the leader of the opposition now? The interim leader is Andrew Scheer. So, question period tomorrow should be Scheer versus Carney for the most part. That's if Carney shows up. Prime Minister questions are Wednesday. So usually Wednesdays are when Prime Minister has to show up for 2 hours. And then, like we saw with Trudeau, they just don't show up the other days of the week. Are all the candidates Liberals? Yes. There were 2 Conservatives that put their names forward, but then withdrew their ballot at the last minute. You can't see Carney in the House. He was just there. He just walked through. He's right there. So yeah, very easy day for them today. I believe this is all they're doing, and then I believe Conservatives and Liberals both have a caucus meeting. So I agree, Steve Morrison. Damien Carrick, definitely a patriot man, willing to step down so that Pierre can run in a re-election, and Alberta's going to show up again and they'll get Pierre re-elected. Six days until you get ballot results? You mean from the election today? For this election, Speaker, you mean? Whoa! Man down. Speaker we find out today. I'm pretty sure right after this. They have to pick a speaker on the first day. Because they need a speaker for the parliament to operate. Melissa Lanceman, great MP. Glad to see her back re-elected. clerk counts the votes? I believe the clerk does. When do they sit down? They're all yapping? Well, they're allowed to get up and yap. Hopefully they're having productive conversations about policy and not talking about the dinner they had last night. That's what I'd be hoping. Will they show who voted for who? No, I don't think so. It's not like when they vote on legislation. You can see the vote because this isn't the same way. Votes for legislation are yay or nay. This is a tiered vote, so you have to write all the names and you put them in who you want most and who you want least. So, I mean, these are all Liberal names, but you have to basically rank these 6 names. Are they voting for pay rises? No, those just automatically come in April 1st. Don't even get a choice in that matter. There's Erkin Smith yawning. Guy needs to go back to bed. Dude's an Ontario MP. Literally, you can't even say like, oh, my time difference. How can you be tired? Just vote all 0? And you have to rank them from who you want most to who you want least. So you have to put a name down. Like, I'm gonna just bite the bullet and buy the green book. It's a good investment. Can you send one to Khalid too? MP Khalid? I'll go halfsies with you if you can send one to MP Khalid. Kevin, I know. The House Gremlin, Kevin, is back. He's going to be the same thing that he was last time. He's going to live in the basement of the House of Commons, and he's going to show up with his balloon-combed hair, and he's going to speak in the House for 8 hours a day, every day. He's going to be ranting and yelling like Kevin always does. When will we see the results? Today, I believe. Right after they're done this, I believe they go and count it. I don't know how long it takes them to count it. It's only 338 votes. It shouldn't take that long. Is it 338 or is it 422 or 342 now, isn't it? 342? Is it? How many is it again? They changed it. I know there's more. $343. Thank you. Thank you. $343. If you guys remember, he was speaker in the House last time. Well, one of the speakers. Didn't do question period. He did, after question period usually. Wasn't he one of the rare conservative ones? Yes. Yeah, basically worked after question period when there wasn't many people. He had to deal with Kevin and stuff like that. Do MPs have to be born Canadian? No. You just have to be a Canadian citizen. You don't have to be born in Canada. MP Cooper going up to vote there. Good returning Conservative MP. Getting down to the bottom of the backbench here. Blocks coming up to vote now. Right after this, the Liberals have a cabinet meeting, so all cabinet ministers will be there. I believe the rest will just get the day off if you're not a cabinet minister. Gilbo. I can't believe that guy got reelected, man. Insane. Are they voting for Speaker? Yes. No question period today, no. The only thing on the agenda for the House today is to select a Speaker. That's it. Kuzi, good returning MP. When are they going to start the selection? Well, after they, MP Dancho just voted, Barrett just voted, good MPs. After they finish voting here, they'll probably have the clerk count it. Could there be a tie? No, that's why they're doing everything in order of most likely to least likely. So you have to put all these names down. It's not yay or nay on, like, what, you don't put down one name. MP Chong coming in, another great conservative MP right there. Happy to see him returning. He's always great in committees and in question period when he gets the odd question or fights back. He's good. He was a pretty big champion of the Winnipeg lab scandal too. Chong pretty much led that file for the Conservatives. See, Gould got reelected. I can't remember who said that earlier. She's not leader in the House, but she's still there. Unfortunately. right, looks like the voting's coming to an end. There's only 338 votes, or 343 votes to count, so it shouldn't take too long. Blanchet talking to Guilbeault. I really want to know what they're talking about. Blanchet's never said anything nice about Guilbeault.
Order.
Je demanderai aux honorables députés.
I would ask honorable members who have not yet voted and wish to do so to please vote now.
If there are any honorable members who have not voted and wish to do so, will they please vote now? The honorable. To all the members having voted, I do now instruct the clerk to proceed with the counting of the ballots after I have cashed my ballot.
Okay, so I think it could take, if there's just one clerk counting, and if they did, like, what, 10 seconds if it took 10 seconds to open the ballot, write down the names or whatever, that could take an hour to count all 343. If they get 2 or 3 people on it, that should only take 15, 20 minutes.
We will now continue with the vote. I forgot to mention something, especially for new members. When we're elected, we expect a lot of recognition. But we shouldn't get into politics to be recognized. A former premier of Quebec once said to a journalist, if you get into politics to be acknowledged and recognized, that's not a great idea. You might as well just buy a dog who will thank you and be grateful to you. Now, before I suspend the sitting, the bells to call the members back to the House will be sounded, and the sitting is suspended to the call of the chair. We will now count the votes.
Okay, so like I said, if they got 2 people on it, that could take 20, 25 minutes. If they've got 1 person counting it, it'd probably take an hour. So they don't have a timer on this. It all depends on how many people are counting those ballots, But, yep. So this is the website. This is where you get to see, the Prime Minister's itinerary. And so as you can see, like, pretty much right now, they're supposed to be going into a cabinet meeting, which they're probably already late for by about 14 minutes or so. I'd assume they're all making their way there now. A lot of the Liberal ministers, they'll probably have about an hour and a half meeting, and then Carney will go for lunch or something like that. And then he's basically got the rest of the day with the King as the King arrives, and they do some media scrums and things like that. So that'll pretty much be Carney's day today. And then tomorrow, there's the speech from the throne. So, yep. Let me see if there's anything we can watch in the meantime. Oh, Sheer was on Vashi last night. Let's watch that while we wait.
Period and the countdown to Parliament's return. On the opposition's side of the aisle, the Conservatives are kicking off the new session without leader Pierre Poilievre, who lost his seat in last month's election. Prime Minister Mark Carney, meanwhile, has promised to allow for a by-election as soon as possible to give Poilievre the chance to win back a seat. The earliest that could happen, though, according to federal law, is midsummer. Here to lay out the Conservatives' priorities for the next 4 weeks in that parliamentary session, is Conservative leader in the House of Commons, Andrew Scheer. Hi, Mr. Scheer. It's good to have you here in studio.
Great to be here again.
I appreciate you making the time. I've asked the same question of your counterpart in government, but I wanted to ask you as well. How can Canadians expect your party to approach this session that is different from the last one?
Well, a lot of that will depend on what the government brings forward. Parliament is about to start. We don't yet have a clear idea of what their priorities are going to be. There's some really easy stuff, though, that they can do that would get the approval of the House of Commons. That would be to undo the terrible Liberal policies from the previous Parliament. So if the government wants some easy ideas, some low-hanging fruit to improve the lives of Canadians, they could start with, for example, repealing Liberal Bill C-75 and C-5. Those are two pieces of legislation that the Liberals brought in that caused the explosion of crime in our communities with their easy bail instead of jail policies. They could fully and completely eliminate the carbon tax for everyone on everything, including the industrial side as well, so that our Canadian manufacturers are not playing shorthanded against their American competitors. They could repeal Bill C-69, that's the No More Pipelines law, which led to a complete desertion of our energy sector by investors and massive attack on jobs throughout Canada, including Western Canada. So those are some really easy things they could do that they could bring forward to the House that we not only would we support, we've been calling for it.
The leader of the government, the government House leader, has led us to believe in interviews that you and him have like frequent conversations. Are there any conversations that have taken place on the priorities you just outlined that would see movement on that?
Well, we've had some good discussions. I've worked with Mr. McKinnon before, and we have, I believe we have a good working relationship and a good appreciation of what each other has to do for the interests of what their parties stand for and what they believe in, and for the voters that vote for them. I've expressed, our leader has certainly expressed to the Liberals what we would be looking for. Pierre Poilievre has suggested that what the Liberals should do is steal more of our ideas. It was the Liberals basically had to spend a bunch of time during the campaign campaigning against their own record and promising to Canadians that they won't do more of the things that caused the explosion in housing prices and rent prices, the devaluing of workers' paycheck with their inflationary deficits. They had to campaign against their signature economic and environmental policy on the carbon tax. So we hope they steal more of our ideas, because that's what conservative ideas are what will improve the quality of life for all Canadians.
Is there, and I understand it's going to depend on the substance of everything that they do, but is there a willingness on your party's part on those matters that you just laid out? Because some of what you mentioned, like C-69, for example, or even in addition the emissions cap, are things the Prime Minister is now signaling he is open to reversing. Like, is that something Canadians can expect if, on principle, not the substance, because we haven't seen any of that yet, the Conservatives will not just oppose for the sake of opposing? And I think of the example of dental care, for example, which your party was very opposed to while you were in opposition in the last session. And then during the election, your policy was that people who had it could keep it, right? So like to reconcile that, are you able to say, there will be a different posture in principle to Canadians watching now?
Well, we are going to give the Liberals an opportunity to bring forward their agendas, then we'll make those decisions as we see it. When we see the legislative priority that they unveil, we'll scrutinize it. That's our job. Our job is not to rubber stamp things before they're even introduced in the House. Our job is to ruthlessly, on behalf of taxpayers and Canadians, go through everything line by line and then make a decision. When we're talking about reversing, I mean, Mark Carney has had a terrible first couple of weeks. I mean, he's got a housing minister that says that housing prices don't have to come down after Carney campaigned during the campaign on making housing more affordable. You've got Stephen Guilbeault still in cabinet saying mistruths, falsehoods about the energy sector, claiming that we don't need more pipelines because our pipelines are underused, not mentioning the fact that hundreds of billions of dollars of investment in the energy sector have left because there's no ability to get energy to market. So we have to wait and see what Mark Carney actually lands on, because so far he's been on both sides of a few key issues.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I think, and I certainly didn't mean to imply rather that the opposition's job was not to oppose, but I think the message from Canadians, and you have acknowledged this in other press conferences, and so has Mr. Poilievre, the message from Canadians, I think, is in the face of a crisis, when there are places that we can work together, perhaps like this is the time, if any, to look and seek out those places. And my example of dental care was like, I can remember on multiple occasions your party vehemently saying it was a terrible thing and a terrible idea, and then the fact that it was in your platform as something you would keep for the people who still had it is difficult to reconcile.
Well, you know, you mentioned specifically working together on things that face our country as a crisis, and on that you're absolutely right. Our leader Pierre Poilievre has signaled that on strengthening Canada's position to deal with these unjustified and unfair tariffs from the United States that we want the government to succeed in getting those tariffs lifted on behalf of Canadians. We believe that the best way to do that is to make Canada stronger, to make Canada a more attractive place to invest. If you've got American investors trying to do business in Canada, you're more likely to have more pressure put on the U.S. administration to lift those tariffs. And when you have a Liberal government that's canceling major pipeline projects, imposing an industrial carbon tax on our steel and aluminum manufacturers, it's less likely that you're going to have that leverage. But by all means, you know, if there are things that Mr. Carney believes that we can be helpful on to help advance his goal of removing those tariffs, we would take a look at those, obviously. But I do need to point out that Mark Carney has set the bar for himself very high. You know, he has said that he's the man you hire in a crisis. He said that he can handle all these kinds of things and that he's got the solution. So we're heading into a time of the year where there's some troubling economic data. When Canadians' household debt is continuing to rise, we've got job losses in some key sectors. And these tariffs are still on. They have not come off. He has not got that deal yet. So while we want those tariffs to come off and we want to be helpful in doing what we can to ensure that happens, we are going to hold this government to account to actually get results. It's not enough to just announce your intentions and say things during a campaign. You actually have to deliver.
What do you think of the relative positioning of someone like Alberta's Premier Danielle Smith, who has made it easier in that province to hold a referendum, and that referendum could very much be on the issue of separatism? I don't think that the feelings of alienation in both your home province of Saskatchewan and Alberta should be dismissed in any way. But is that kind of playing with fire at a time when you are scrutinizing, and Canadians are scrutinizing, our relative leverage with the U.S.?
What I would say about that topic in general is that we have to understand why people in Western Canada are upset. They're upset because their way of life has been attacked. They're upset because they have had to have that salt in the wounds, the insult to injury. Not only do people have their businesses go bankrupt, some of those businesses in the oil and gas sector have had to sell their equipment to U.S. companies who drill down into the exact same basin that they were operating in Canada, and they're auctioning off their equipment at pennies on the dollar. That devastates communities, it bankrupts business owners, and it lays off hundreds, if not thousands, of people. So we have to understand why people are upset. I believe that the best course of action to preserve national unity is to have a conservative government that allows every region in this country to excel at what they do best, to grow their industries, to be prosperous and successful in a united Canada. I believe conservative solutions will get us there and keep our country united.
But right now the Conservatives aren't in government, right? And they are well represented in your party is well represented in those two provinces. But it appears like there might be some political utility in putting the prospect of separation at provincial level on the table. Is it not incumbent on federal parties to do whatever they can? And that's not to take away from the stuff that you spelled out about why they feel so alienated, but isn't it incumbent on your party, for example, to do everything you can to dispel the idea that separation is the solution?
Well, I think it's incumbent on Canadians to work towards that united Canada. That's certainly what our party is going to do. I believe the quickest and best way to resolve these issues is to repeal those Liberal bills that cause the economic damage that is leading to the alienation. And that's how we're going to preserve that unity. We're going to fight for Canadian unity by fighting against those Liberal policies that cause so much damage, not just to Western Canada, by the way. There's a lot of manufacturing jobs in Ontario that depend on heavy equipment purchases in Alberta, in Saskatchewan. There are lots of people in Ontario and Quebec who don't want to import oil from the United States or from countries around the world with completely different value sets, with governments that don't align with Canada on anything from human rights to foreign affairs. So there's a lot of goodwill. It's not just a Western Canadian issue. For sure, there's the most profound negative impacts of those Liberal policies are felt in Western Canada, but there's good reason to support these energy projects and to repeal these Liberal bills across the country. New Brunswick imports a lot of oil from the Middle East for their refinery. That doesn't make sense.
Is the Premier wrong, though, to make it easier to hold a referendum on the issue? I mean, oil production has increased. It was at record levels last year.
Well, we saw periods of time in Canada where where energy companies had to sell their product at a loss just to get it transported. That's in recent memory. We saw tens of billions of dollars of investment withdrawn. We had big mining projects like Tech Frontier canceled, all because of Liberal legislation. So again, I believe the best way to address this from the federal level, I'm a federal politician, I represent Saskatchewan in the House of Commons, the best thing I can do to address those issues in Western Canada is to do everything I can in the House of Commons to repeal those Liberal policies.
Can you do both at the same time? Can you condemn the use of a referendum and making it easier? Because you're choosing not to.
I can absolutely advocate for a united Canada. I can absolutely encourage people in Western Canada to work with us in the Conservative Party to get those bad Liberal bills repealed. I think that, again, I think that is the best way to arrive at the destination of a united Canada. We don't have a problem in Western Canada with people in other parts of the country because there are vast differences in them. We just see right now a federal government that is damaging our way of life, damaging our ability to be prosperous. And once we alleviate that, I believe once we can repeal those bills, if we can convince the Liberal government to do that, I believe we're going to see a lot of that Western alienation naturally dissipate.
But you don't want to say a referendum is the wrong path?
Well, I mean, I'll leave it to provincial premiers to handle what's going on in their province. I'm not a resident of Alberta. I don't, I'm a resident of Saskatchewan. That's not something that our premier's been talking about. But I can certainly advocate for United Canada. I believe that everybody in Alberta or Saskatchewan, BC for that matter, should reflect on getting rid of those Liberal bills as the easiest and quickest way to allow our provinces to grow and be prosperous, and also to recognize that there are people in other parts of the country, people in other provinces that are aligned with us on this issue, that want to see our energy sector succeed both in their own regions and because their industries benefit from that growth in the energy sector.
Okay, I'll leave it there. Thanks, Mr. Chair. Appreciate it as always.
Thank you.
I mean, I hate her trying to pull out of him. Will you just say that a referendum is bad? He's like, I'm all for a united Canada. How much more do you want me to spell that out? Okay, so House is still in recess. How long have they been in recess for? What's it been? What, 15 minutes? About 15 minutes? I bet you it takes closer to an hour for them to count everything. Let me see what else we can watch in the meantime. Is there no scrum going on right now? Are media not trying to pull MPs to talk while they're going in and out of the... Oh, this was yesterday. There was a media scrum yesterday.
The Reform Act. What do you think about the Reform Act?
I'm going to vote against. I think it's an imperfect Conservative bill to deal with Stephen Harper and it was an imperfect act to deal with Stephen Harper's time in office. Canadians want to see us moving forward. They want to see us working, and this is a lot of questions and a lot of focus on this former Conservative piece of legislation, and so my constituents want to see us getting to work, so let's move on. I support the leader, and I think we all do in this room, and we didn't expect to be here 6 months ago, and it's time to get working for this.
So you're worried about us sending the wrong message if they vote for this?
I don't think it sends a message either way. The Conservative Party adopted it and moved on to the next thing. But again, we need to focus on Canadians, need to focus on the economy, need to focus on moving forward, not internal Liberal caucus dynamics.
But why wouldn't you give yourself the right to do that? You know, a comparison that was made is like it's like in a marriage. You know, you make an agreement just in case things go wrong, but it doesn't mean things are going to go wrong, right?
It doesn't mean that things are going to go wrong. I think caucus was particularly effective in under the previous Prime Minister, and eventually was brought to the right decision. I think this is, again, time to move forward, and Canadians expect us to do that.
What is it about the act that you oppose specifically, though?
Again, it was created through
but
the
despite
reform.
the Stephen Harper factor, right?
Despite the Stephen Harper factor, but you still have that as the background. That's still how it was created through the Reform Party, not even through the Conservative Party. This is their notions that exist. It takes away the right of our membership. I look forward to robust discussions at the next convention, which is coming up in Montreal. I think there needs to be some serious reforms to the party constitution and give that right to the membership.
And would there be a different option or a better option to give that same kind of power to the government?
I think it's a issue that Canadians came forward in a very short period of time to ensure that Mark Carney was the leader. And we owe it to them to ensure that the party constitution reflects their right and their responsibility and their role if should that decision come, if the marriage breaks down as the question was asked before. So thank you so much.
Are you supporting the Reform Act?
It's good to be back here to see caucus again.
We support the Reform Act.
On the Reform Act, are you going to vote for it? Or
I'm listening to the discussions, but I'm leaning against.
Are you going to vote for or against the Reform Act?
I won't be voting for the Reform Act. I believe we just had a leadership membership race where 85% of our Liberal members from coast to coast to coast made it clear who they want their leader to be, and I think we need to respect that.
Is that what do you have against it? Is that
The rumors of my death were greatly exaggerated.
Apparently they were. So congratulations.
Thank you.
You're going to vote on the Reform Act.
That is correct.
You got some thoughts about it?
I, along with many Canadians, have the utmost confidence in Prime Minister Mark Carney. For me, I know that we as a caucus are very strong. We make our decisions in there. I've come in with a preset mind that I will not be supporting the Reform Act because we don't need to. Our caucus is strong and we can do what we need to do. If I have a problem with any member of caucus, I can air it in there.
Okay. But what happens if you don't have confidence anymore? Just like what happened, you've lived it under Justin Trudeau.
I have confidence in Mark Carney, as well as many, many Canadians, and will continue to support the Prime Minister. But that, behind those doors right there, that's our caucus. We can let our hair down at any time and have very frank and open discussions, and that's what I will continue to do.
But I know you let your hair down with Justin Trudeau,
Sure.
and it took months for him to resign, and he wasn't listening to the will of the caucus. So
You know what?
Isn't that a cautionary tale?
You know what? I can tell you that this caucus has existed since 1867, and it's done a great job, and we're going to continue to represent the people. And Mark Carney is by far the greatest leader that we've seen since Lester B. Pearson, which I have the honor now of representing the area where he was in Ottawa. So I have all the confidence in the world, and if I do have a problem, I'll let him know in there. Speaker's race. Wow, there's lots of great names there, and I'm looking forward to their speeches. I'm looking forward to what they have to say. And I know that we're lucky to have so many great candidates from all parties putting their name forward. Well, I can tell you I'm from Sault Ste. Marie, Algoma now, and Rob Oliphant is from Sault Ste. Marie, and obviously he's been a great supporter of steel and a number of things, so I'll be throwing my support behind Rob. Merci.
Oui. Mais on va en parler justement au caucus, c'est là que ça va se décider et c'est là que ça va être discuté.
Mais sur le principe même du Reform Act, le Jacques enseigne.
Non, c'est une bonne discussion qu'on va avoir au caucus. Ça, c'est une discussion qu'on a hâte d'avoir.
De nouveaux collègues, voulez-vous que j'aille là? Non? De nouveaux collègues, une nouvelle équipe, un nouveau premier ministre, je pense que on est fébrile, on est excité et on a beaucoup de choses à accomplir.
Qu'est-ce que vous pensez du Reform Act? Est-ce que vous allez...
Passe au caucus de répondre aux caucuses by definition. The Reform Act, look, anything that happens in the caucus is by definition private, and that will be taken up by the caucus as is prescribed by the law.
Mais pensez-vous que ce serait légitime, que c'est légitime de la part du caucus de demander à un chef de quitter, ou ça devrait revenir davantage aux militants?
Je suis un député parmi 170 à peu près députés libéraux. On va tous se prononcer sur les 4 questions qui sont prescrites par la loi sur la réforme.
How are you going to keep the House of Commons running on track? Last Parliament, you don't want to be derailed the agenda several times.
Well, we are a minority government, so that obviously means that we need to attract support from all sides of the House to get anything done. At the same time, we believe very, very clearly that Canadians have given us a mandate, and I think it will be incumbent on all parties to respond to that mandate, to read very clearly that mandate. Canadians expect action, they expect results, and that's what we intend to give them. J'ai eu des bonnes conversations avec l'ensemble des oppositions, conservateurs, Bloc québécois, j'ai parlé au chef du NPD, j'ai parlé à Mme May également, donc on a tendu la main de la collaboration et c'est ce que nous allons continuer de faire pendant ces 4 semaines. I've spoken to all of the opposition, Mr. Scheer, I've spoken to Mme Normandin, I've spoken to Ms. May and Mr. Davies, and we will obviously continue to extend the hand of collaboration, and we want to get results for Canadians. We want to give them the opportunity to do that. Thank you. Merci.
Ça va être des discussions qu'on va avoir, mais je pense qu'on a un gros mandat pour du changement pour les Canadiens avec M. Carney. On vient de passer une élection, donc c'est plus ça qui m'intéresse pour aujourd'hui. Merci beaucoup. Thank you. I'm just looking forward to bring about the change that we've promised in the last election. I think the mandate that we've been given by Canadians, so I'm looking forward to that.
C'est une bonne idée de se donner ce droit-là.
What happens? Do you think it will be like there's a legitimate chance that the Reform Act passes?
I haven't polled on it, David.
Okay.
But we'll see how it goes. Look, I think certainly the experience of the past few months stands out, but there's an opportunity here to remake how caucus is done.
Yep.
For example, one of the questions on my mind will be whether the caucus chair, or new caucus chair, and I'm supporting James Maloney in this, will regularly be meeting with the Prime Minister. That's how it used to take place.
Yep.
For whatever reason, that went away under Justin Trudeau. But I think that we have an opportunity to do things differently. And certainly, one of the reasons I'm supporting James is because he will absolutely make sure that caucus is well represented and that the Prime Minister and PMO know the view of caucus.
Okay, do you think it should be a secret ballot?
What's that?
Do you think it should be a secret ballot? Or
we'll discuss that inside. But again, my mind's open on it. Look, I think there's nothing wrong with showing your colleagues what you think. But I can see arguments for the secret ballot too. So
I like James as a caucus chair.
I think
who else
be
is
excellent.
Eddie, do you know who?
I'm not sure. I heard some names, but we'll
find out.
It'll be revealed in there.
I know.
Okay.
Well, we won't be there. You'll get to know me.
No, it'll be a good meeting for sure.
Okay.
Nice to see
Thank you, Peter. Appreciate it.
I'll definitely be supporting the Reform Act. I think it's important to have caucus accountability in every party, and I believe that it's important in our party. I have the scars from the past where I think we haven't necessarily always been taken seriously, and I think it's important. This is by no way a reflection on the confidence that we have or that I have in the current leadership. This is not about Mark Carney's leadership. We have full confidence in our leader, but I do believe in caucus accountability.
What about the chair of the caucus? Same sort of thing, because that's another important post for caucus.
Well, it's all part of the 4 different measures that are included in the Reform Act provisions, and I think that's another important one, and I believe that that's an important accountability measure as well.
Would you have a choice, someone you'd like to see as a caucus chair? You got anybody?
I'm going to be voting for James Maloney. I think he's going to be a great caucus chair.
Person I just heard who said James.
He's a popular guy. He's been our Ontario caucus chair in the past, and he's done a fantastic job, and I'll be voting for him. Thank you very much.
I'm anxious to hear what they have to say inside the room.
Do you like the idea of balancing?
I'm going to. It's the vote is secret, and I'm going to keep it that way.
Just the idea, though, that do you think it's important to somehow balance the power of caucus versus the power of the leader's office? That might have got a bit out of balance. with the last leader?
Someone said,
okay.
Yep.
I do? Yep. Okay. Thank you.
I think it's important to have these types of conversations. We're going to go into a room, we're going to have a conversation around what's the best approach, but I think it's a very valid conversation to have.
Did you think the balance got out of shape versus caucus versus the leader's office with the last leader?
No, I just think that we should always review processes and figure out what's the best way to approach a situation where a caucus or the party in general wants to go in one direction and perhaps others want to go in the other direction. So I'm open-minded. I'm going to go and listen to the different points of views, make up my mind inside. Thank you. James Maloney.
Je sais pas ce qui se passe. Moi, vous connaissez ma devise. Ce qui se passe au caucus reste au caucus. Et puis j'ai hâte de voir l'autre jour.
Allez-vous rester président du caucus?
Oui, je reste président du caucus Québec.
The whole team is very excited about coming back. We're very excited about ensuring that our Prime Minister succeeds, and he's a welcome addition and a great leader in terms of what we're happening next. So I think the discussion around the table will be great.
But based on the Trudeau experience, would it not be a good idea to maybe have those powers just in case?
You know, I think it's important, and I think ultimately the decisions on these things are made by the membership, by the Assembly, not by necessarily any caucus member. It's got to be made by the broader good. And certainly Carney has proven himself to be the one that's the proven one, the one that's the choice that the Liberal Party has. Going forward, no one should be omnipotent, no one should be all-powerful. We recognize that. I think Mark Carney sees that too. What's important though is we support Mark Carney, we support where we're headed, and I'm very excited, as are my colleagues.
And who do you want to see as chair?
Listen, I have a soft spot for James Maloney because he's my neighbor and he's been a friend. He's very engaged in the issues that matter to all of us, and he's enthusiastic about the opportunity. So he's my choice. Take care, guys.
Thank you.
Okay. Ballots are still being counted. Just making sure that's live. See what else we can tune into while we're waiting. Like I said, I imagine this is probably going to take half an hour, and it's already been half an hour, so they probably have another half hour left if there's 343 ballots to count. I don't know how many people they have counting it, probably two. Let me just see. I don't really want to watch Mark Carney address his caucus, but I feel like I missed that, even though I already know what he's probably going to say. You can see a lot of the mainstream media now is starting to pre-schedule their live streams for King Charles talking in Canada, like arriving off the plane, getting greeted by Carney and stuff. So there'll be that like photo op there. That starts, it looks like, in an hour and 15 minutes. So I'd imagine right now the Liberals are having their caucus meeting. And then right after that, Carney goes straight from the caucus to welcome King Charles's plane land.
King Charles and Queen Camilla set to arrive in Canada today, and we're joined live this morning by CTV's royal commentator Richard Berthelsson to discuss how the capital is readying for a royal visit and the significance as well. Richard, good to talk to you this morning. A lot of Canadians were a little concerned about how the King maybe didn't respond with much force to Donald Trump's threats to our sovereignty, etc. What do you think we may hear from the King on this visit, and how important is it for him to deliver that message of Canadian sovereignty?
Well, the king is a constitutional monarch, and so he acts on the advice of ministers. And the other point I think, important point to realize is that the king is probably best positioned to make that response on Canadian soil, where he is clearly acting on the advice of Canadian ministers. So tomorrow, the ultimate state occasion, which is the opening of Parliament, that speech is written by the government, and so the king will give his voice to the government's words about the sovereignty of this country and the threats we're facing. Of course, it's going to be done in a tactful way because it's not a political speech in the sense of a partisan speech, but it's a very important state occasion. So that is where we're going to hear a very strong statement. It's going to be in the king's voice, and it's going to be delivered to an international audience because the level of interest in this visit in the United States, but also elsewhere, and particularly in the United Kingdom, is also very intense. So this is going to be a very important moment for the king to put his thumb on the scale of Canada and the way we see the issues that are facing us with the threats by President Trump.
And Richard, this is a very historic visit. The king has not set foot on Canada since his coronation 2 years ago. But prior to that, Queen Elizabeth was the one who read the throne speech. Talk about the significance of this, because it hasn't happened many times in history. I believe this would be the third time or so.
That's right, the third time in Canada. Now, the late Queen was very good about going to every single one of the countries that she was head of state of and giving at least one throne speech. In New Zealand, I think she did 7. So, that has happened throughout the Commonwealth. The Queen felt it was important to do that. I think the King also agrees that that's a very important statement because it really suggests the role that the King plays in this country, which is part of Parliament, part of our constitutional architecture. So it is going to be very historic. It's historic that it's his first visit, but let's remember, he's been here 19 times prior. He's been to every part of the country. He's multiply visited most provinces and territories. I mean, he dove under the ice in the Arctic Ocean. He's done all sorts of things in the nooks and crannies of this country. So he really does know the country. But this marks a new chapter where he is performing the roles of the sovereign, of King of Canada. And so we're going to see a different side of him in that sense. And I think Canadians are also waking up to a different side of him. In he's a little elderly. He's obviously had some personal issues, particularly with cancer in the last year. I think Canadians are looking at him with a slightly different eye and probably a little bit of admiration for getting on a plane to come over here for 24 hours just to perform this function, which is so important to us.
And that's what I wanted to get to, Richard, because I think some people may be anticipating and looking forward to seeing the King and Queen. However, it is a very brief trip. Do you think that is more a nod to the health of the King?
No, I think it's simply a question of the palace was unable to act on a lot of this until the election was concluded. And with the level of political instability in this country, with the resignation of Prime Minister Trudeau and, the Parliament being on a knife edge, the palace would not have been able to come here. So listen, the Prime Minister, Mr. Carney, was on the phone the morning after the election, tendering this invitation. The King's schedule is very, very committed, long in advance. They found this 48-hour window, and here he is. So, and it is also probably the earliest possible moment Parliament could have met. So the palace was extremely acquiescent to the Canadian request, and the timing and the length of time of the visit is simply a function of on the short notice on which it's being organized.
Yeah, okay. And very quickly, Richard, Queen Camilla, what is the Canadian government doing to kind of recognize her? What's her role?
Well, she'll be playing a full part in the visit. She'll be, of course, in the Senate chamber tomorrow with a speech from the throne. People will be watching to see what she's wearing, no doubt. I'm sure there'll be a few nods to Canadian jewelry in the royal wardrobe. And the Queen will be made a Canadian Privy Councillor, which is a ceremonial body that advises the King formally. All cabinet ministers are also a part of it. Others have been made part of it over the years. Prince Philip was made part of it on his first visit with us in 1957. So that's a little nod to the Queen, and she'll be playing, I'm sure, a full role at the walkabouts, greeting the public, accepting flowers, and having a little laugh here and there, as she is wont to do.
Yeah, the royal couple likely in the air right now, getting...
Okay, so that's that. We can tune into CTV next night as
After
well
a more than 5-month hiatus, Parliament...
One thing I think Canadians aren't that big on the monarch. Like, it's kind of like, okay, sure. But in England, they're seriously... The English love their monarchy. So when they say, oh, all these people are going to be watching, no, I think there's going to be more British people watching than there are Canadians. That's just the nature of Britain. They're super pro-monarchy.
Resumes tomorrow. On Tuesday, the government is set to lay out its priorities via a speech from the throne delivered by His Majesty King Charles III. Two major commitments we're tracking: Prime Minister Mark Carney's promise to end internal trade barriers and to pass a middle-class tax cut. He's pledged to take action on both by Canada Day. Carney's first few weeks, meanwhile, have been mired in some communication misfires, first over his government's commitment to oil pipelines, and then over whether or not his government will produce a budget this year. We've got a lot, I should say, to unpack, and our Sunday strategy session is here to do just that. Kathleen Monk is a former NDP strategist and Director of Communications to the late Jack Layton. Corey Tonight was Ontario Premier Doug Ford's campaign manager and former Director of Communications for Prime Minister Stephen Harper. Scott Reid is a CTV News political analyst and former Communications Director to Prime Minister Paul Martin. Hi, everybody. Good to see you. Thanks for making the time. Scott, I'll start with you. Before we look ahead to the throne speech, wanted to get your assessment of how things have gone for the government so far. What stands out to you?
Couple of growing pains. I mean, you mentioned those two sort of cabinet outgaffes, if you will. Lack of clarity with respect to the government's position on pipelines and energy infrastructure. I think more seriously, a strange kind of miscue from the finance minister about will there be a budget? When will there be a budget? And look, I'm reminded when I try to sort of understand this of that moment during the campaign. There was a Carney rally and someone yelled out, lead us, Big Daddy. Remember that? And everybody got to laugh. The Prime Minister, you got to. Well, I think the government has a bit of a big case of Big Daddies right now. Like you get the feeling that ministers haven't settled into their spot. They don't know that they feel 100% comfortable with what the brief is, and everyone is looking and listening for the Prime Minister. So if the Quebec Lieutenant says he doesn't like pipelines, like, yeah, who cares? What does the Prime Minister have to say? What's his word on it? The Prime Minister's to go and clean that up. Finance Minister says there won't be a budget this year. Prime Minister stands up to the microphone in Rome and says, actually, we're going to have a budget in the fall. So, that kind of lack of clarity, to my mind, in some respects, it reflects this kind of one-man government. Everyone's looking to Carney. And eventually, Carney's going to have to turn to his cabinet ministers and say, I am expecting you to carry some of this burden, to be clear, to be on point. And it can't just be government by Mark Carney, communication by Mark Carney. The rest of the cabinet is going to have to pull this cart too. So I think that's what we're seeing right now, and that I think can be remedied pretty quickly.
Speaking of Big Daddies, Corey, do you agree with do you agree with Scott's assessment? I would say I understand what he's saying, but I think Mark Carney, I think the Prime Minister has certainly positioned himself as like that voice of authority, like in all of his remarks that led up to these past few weeks.
Normally I agree with you a lot, Scott, but on this one I got to say I'm on the other side of the earth. Like I think there's a lack of leadership here. Like Carney is being clear on the pipeline question, for example. And what you saw is, I think, the consequence of a really bad cabinet pick, and one that should have been so completely obvious to anyone who's watched Stephen Guilbeault over the last number of years that he's been in federal politics. Like, look, he's an environmental radical whose positions on these issues have been diametrically opposed to the positions that Mark Carney took during the campaign. And it's not a surprise that somebody who's willing to go to jail on those beliefs is certainly willing to break cabinet protocol on communications around those beliefs. He's a radical. He doesn't belong in this government, in my view, or at least not in a cabinet position or anywhere near the controls. Okay, so that's not a surprise. But in terms of the questions around the budget, once again, this is yet another Liberal finance minister with no comms abilities whatsoever. Like, I know that Champagne likes to talk, but he's not a good communicator, and I don't think he'll ever be confused for being one. I think he botched the comms on what was going to happen with the fall economic statement, or is it a budget? Whether it's because he thought he didn't need to check with the PMO and freelanced it, or whether he just botched the comms outright. I don't know. I guess we'll see. But in both these cases, I think these are leftovers from the Trudeau era that should have been left over when it came to making this cabinet.
For a second week in a row, Kathleen Corey declares his love for Stephen Guilbeault on this program. I mean, where the finance minister is concerned, I have to say I did an interview with him that week. He was out talking quite extensively. He had very specific points that he made over and over again. It didn't sound to me like he was necessarily, like, it sounded like that was coming from somewhere.
Yeah, it didn't sound like he was
so
freelancing.
Interesting again, like I'm not disagreeing or defending, but what Corey or Scott is saying, but interesting again that they find themselves where he is voraciously defending a position, and then 3 days later that position changes, ultimately when the Prime Minister decides to say something different.
Yeah, I'm going to come in between both Corey and Scott, kind of a Goldilocks, viewpoint on this, because I'm not sure if the sputtering start and these kind of, misstatements by different cabinet ministers is a result of a lack of staffing, the very quick transition that we're seeing. Like, objectively, this has been fast, right? 2 weeks, the government's back next Monday. It's really been very, very quick. So I give them some leeway on that. But I actually think that the problem is that Carney is the government. And no matter how much he keeps on saying that he wants cabinet government, he wants his cabinet ministers to lead, this will be a government led by my cabinet ministers, the government is best when he is speaking and he is speaking alone. And he's done that correction a few times, right? And so when you saw his mandate letters that he put out to his cabinet ministers. Letter, exactly. Singular, the singular letter is, he really provided a framework, and that provided such a differentiation from all the platitudes that Prime Minister Trudeau used to jam into 10-page letters. We have a one-page letter, very clear, very concise. Sure, it's missing some key words like healthcare and crime and other things that probably Canadians would like to see in it, but it provides a framework, and he is demanding his cabinet ministers to bring the ideas, to bring the metrics, to bring the measurement tools that they'll be judged by. But the problem is that he's the one, singularly, always coming back and correcting the record and delivering the forceful message alone, and he can't manage this whole government by himself. He's going to have to devolve some of that responsibility to his cabinet.
It's interesting because as you're talking, I was thinking that is what was so successful for the Liberals during the campaign. He was able to differentiate from the previous Liberal government and from his competitors on his own branding, right? But that's a difficult thing to then put into action in government. It's like two very different things. Corey wants to jump in. Yeah, go ahead.
Couldn't you do that easily by having like Tim Hodgson go out and do some communicating? Like if your message is that half the cabinet is new, then why don't you put out some new cabinet ministers and have them communicate? Why don't you draw a circle around some of the people who are there because of you and the beliefs that you have in common with around whether it's resource development.
Scott, I'll get you. I promise. Okay, go for it, Scott. He wants to jump in.
Well, I was just going to say, we'll probably see some of that out of necessity, if nothing else, this week when everybody's back in the House of Commons. So I think we will see some of those. But, Corey, you and I have both been communication instructors to a prime minister, and you also need to be careful when you see this sort of mistakes happening with Guilbeault, with Gregor Robertson, with Champagne. I mean, you don't want to compound it by taking a rookie and putting him out there and feeling like you, as a newbie, have to clean it all up. So I'd be a little bit prudent. They get a restart naturally with the King coming to town. So I think that's the time to reorganize.
Who's a comms genius? I'm sure we'll all agree. Nothing could possibly go wrong there.
Okay, speaking of which, I have a few minutes left, and I do want to look ahead to that speech from the throne, but also like the 3 weeks that will follow in the House. Corey, what are your expectations there?
Oh boy, to build on what Scott just said, I expect we're going to see a lot more fumbling around as the government tries to find its feet. And I think we've seen some of those challenges. I think we're going to see more of them because I don't think it's clear what's going on the staff side yet, which is important. It's behind the scenes, but I think it's really important in how all these things function. And I think we're seeing cabinet ministers who are not really sure what they should be saying or doing, and whether or not they're still stuck on the talking points of the Trudeau government, or what the ailment is. I guess we've debated that already, but I think we're going to see more of that. And I think I'll be watching the opposition too. I'll be very curious to see which direction Poilievre takes. Whether you see some of the more open to working with the Liberals on certain things, sort of sounds coming out of them, which we've seen some of, or whether we'll see some more, everything is fine and, falling back into the more combative campaign style that we've grown accustomed to from them. I'll be interested to see how they play it.
I have an even more basic question. Will we see Mr. Polyev? Because
Yeah,
right,
because
Kathleen?
right now, you know, he's going to be sitting up in the galleries with others. You know, will he be crammed in with all the guests for the King's speech? I mean, listen, for Monday for the speech from the throne, listen, the Parliament's coming back after being away for over 4 months, right? And during that time, we've seen a leadership race, we've seen a very exciting election, and now it's time for the grind of government, right? Under new management, Carney's there. What's his thesis? That's what I'm looking for. You know, normally speeches from the throne are really just a communication exercise. They're, you know, but what will it look like? You know, and even the stagecraft of it all, it is. For me, it requires a lot of mental gymnastics to invite the King to be here to both assert our sovereignty, you know, but have the King actually do the speech when at the same time Carney has said just this past week that he actually wants further integration with the U.S. in terms of the Golden Dome and all the military and defense and security alliance that comes with that. Like, it's going to be weird, but I mean, everyone's going to be watching Tuesday, excuse me, when the speech from the throne is, and even who's elected for Speaker on Monday, which will be interesting too, because it will tip the scales of how strong, you know, potentially the the strong minority is.
The strong minority, not a majority. Yeah.
Exactly.
Last word to you, Scott. I got 30 seconds. What are you watching for next week?
I'm going to watch for a couple of things. One, the discipline that we always see around Carney, to the discussion we were just having, will we see it extended to the whole of the cabinet when they're all up on their feet and getting grilled and going to be questioned on a daily basis? Secondly, I think it's going to be interesting to see how specific, how focused his throne speech is. I think you've got a quick session of Parliament. It's an opportunity to say, these are our priorities. There's lots of things to do, but these are the 3, 4, 5 things I want to move on quickly and establish as our clear starting point. And I think there's a big opportunity for them to reorient. If there's been a couple of early minor stumbles, they can completely correct that with this session.
All right, I'll leave it on that note.
Oh, sorry, my mic was muted. We're still counting ballots, guys. So just for anybody who's tuned in recently, these are the candidates here. 6 Liberal candidates. Greg Fergus coming back to try to run for Speaker of the House of Commons. And ballots have been counting for over half an hour now, almost 45 minutes. So I assume they probably have another about 15 minutes left. There's 343 votes to count. So it should be within the next, 15, 20. We'll see who the next Speaker of the House is. So we're just kind of flipping between videos in the meantime. See if there's something else I can turn on while we're waiting. I figured we all just didn't want to sit here and watch a blank green screen for an hour. Slowest count ever. Well, there's 343 votes, and if there's only 2 people, it should take half an hour. If there's 1 person, it should take an hour. And that's if you were doing each ballot 10 seconds at a time. Getting it out, opening the paper, writing it down. I'd say that takes 10 seconds. 10 seconds times 443, you're at what, 56 minutes? 57 minutes? So if they have 2 people doing it, it would be half an hour. I just tried to do, I don't know if I got that quick math right. Somebody actually do 10 seconds times. I'm going to see if CPAC has a scrum from catching people in and out of the... No. Is there anything else that we can watch? Oh, no way. This Yahoo went on CBC yesterday.
MPs heading back to Ottawa to sit in the House for the first time in 2025. Both the Liberals and Conservatives are holding caucus meetings this afternoon on Parliament Hill. All this, of course, happening during a historic week in the nation's capital, the opening of the 45th Parliament, 2 days of pomp and procedure, starting tomorrow with a secret ballot where MPs will choose the next Speaker of the House of Commons, and then the historic part, a throne speech delivered by King Charles, where he will lay out the priorities of Mark Carney's government. I spoke to the Government House Leader, Steve McKinnon, about what Canadians can expect. Steve McKinnon, nice to see you.
It's great to be here.
Congratulations on being the House Leader. I know it's a job you enjoy.
It's a great honor.
We'll see how it goes. So the House has not sat at all in 2025. You're going to be back. You have a very brief period of time with a minority government and a Prime Minister who expects a lot of movement.
Yes.
How do you think this is going to go, and who are you talking to make sure that it functions?
Well, first of all, it's exciting.
Yeah.
And I have been doing my best to reach out to my new colleagues, to returning colleagues, and also to the opposition.
Yeah.
I've had healthy discussions with my Bloc and Conservative counterparts, being as transparent as we can about our objectives. We will have a reasonably focused set of objectives for this session of Parliament, but we do have some things we want to get done. And I do think Canadians expect results. I think Canadians want to put in the rear, without casting blame, Canadians want to put in the rearview mirror these procedural debates and long filibusters that we saw that characterized last fall.
Yeah.
Canadians, I don't think, will have any patience for that. They're going to be very frustrated if we redescend into those things. And so we have, I think, a pretty tightly focused agenda for the House of Commons, and we're hoping it's approved.
And because of that, how do you go about it? So let's take the middle-class tax cut, what the Prime Minister wants done pretty quickly. Do you approach parties and say, are you willing? What are those conversations like?
Well, without revealing timing and form and all of those things that are underprivileged, we certainly want to give them as much of a heads up as possible. But I don't think it's any secret. We want to cut taxes for Canadians. I don't think really there's, frankly, much disagreement about that. And yes, those who are watching us, you will get a tax cut on July 1st. Every Canadian who pays income tax will get a tax cut.
Can you do that legislatively, though?
And that is a priority in this session.
Yeah, and so that is, would you say that's the top priority to get that passed?
Well, no, I think we have another imperative, which is, you've heard the Prime Minister say many times that we can do more for ourselves as a country than anyone else can do to us. And so we want to get a start on that. We want to put a down payment on that, and we'll be proposing legislative measures that creates one Canadian economy, makes the federal government a partner in creating one Canadian economy, and making sure that we are in a position to expand our ability to do trade with the world, to make more fluid the Canadian economy, to make supply chains
Without getting
stronger.
you into trouble, though, we're not just talking here about federal barriers for interprovincial trade. You're talking about some other piece of legislation. Is that what you're suggesting?
What we're talking about is what we talked about in the campaign. I don't think it will be a mystery to anyone or a surprise to anyone that we'll be making some significant proposals with respect to making the Canadian economy work better.
Okay. One of the things that will look different is that the Conservative leader will not be there as the leader of the official opposition. Does that change the dynamic for you? Does that worry you that he's not going to be there, at least in the immediate, to sort of lead his party?
Well, of course, first, the Prime Minister made what I think was a very significant, symbolically powerful proposal that he would not delay, if that was the wish of Conservatives, calling a by-election, and that is a commitment that he intends to honor. And it was meant as a deposit on goodwill. We do not have a majority in this House. We have a minority. We know that. We do think we have a mandate. But obviously, Mr. Poilievre is a unique presence, and that absence will be felt for some time. Conservatives have said that'll be of short duration, and so obviously we expect him back in the House of Commons soon enough.
What about the NDP? They've got 7 seats. They would like, if not official party status, at least more money and resources. I know that Don Davies has reached out. I don't know if it's directly to you. How willing are you to consider that?
I've spoken to Mr. Davies. Party status is probably not something that's on the table. That's set out in law. 12 seats are required.
You could change it, though.
There are a lot of, well, yes, but again, minority.
Yes, sure.
But, he's advanced several, I think, very, very constructive ideas, respectful of the traditions of the New Democratic Party. These are things that I cannot decide on my own. But we've taken very, very careful notes, and and we'll continue to work on those.
The first job on Monday, of course, is to get a new speaker elected. There are different names floating out there. Is Liberal caucus choosing, do they have free choice? Is there someone that the Liberal cabinet prefers? How should we, what should we watch for on Monday?
Well, it's a secret ballot.
I know that.
And members exercise, in my experience, exercise that franchise very seriously. They take very seriously the speeches that are made on the floor of the House of Commons. It's quite unique that we spend a day to select the person that will preside over our deliberations. I know members from all sides will be paying very close attention to what those candidates
Would you like
say.
to see a Liberal in that job, though?
I think we're going to have a secret ballot, Rosemary, and we're going to see what happens. It is a minority parliament.
Yeah.
There are several candidates, a couple from the other side of the House, I know, and so we'll see how that works. It's a preferential ballot.
Sure.
It's really hard to make predictions.
And then, of course, on Tuesday we get the throne speech with the King delivering that. How important is it, do you think, that he is coming to do that, to deliver sort of the government's agenda with all the symbolism and history that entails?
I think it's significant, and I don't think Canadians should underestimate its significance. I think the King will have, without knowing what he's going to say, I have no doubt that he will want to send his own personal message to Canadians. And in return, I think what we're doing is recognizing our parliamentary system, is recognizing our roots in the British Isles and, of course, France, and always in respect of our Indigenous peoples. And so we're going to, I think, enjoy that day, and it'll be one for the history books.
Yeah. Would you expect, I mean, it's written by the Prime Minister's office, and he delivers it.
Mm-hmm.
How much of that message do you think is going to be about not just the government's agenda, but also about Canada and its sovereignty, something that has been obviously a conversation these last months?
Well, the government doesn't need a throne speech to be unambiguous about that.
Yes.
And we will continue to be unambiguous about Canada's sovereignty. Canada's destiny will be chosen by Canadians through Canadian institutions, like the great institution that is the Parliament of Canada. And so having all of those things come together with all of the ceremony in the institutions of our Parliament, I think is a day that Canadians will remember.
The Reform Act will be voted on Sunday afternoon by caucus. The Liberal Party has never voted to accept it. There is conversation happening with caucus members now who feel, I think, a little PTSD from the way it happened with Justin Trudeau and want to know that there is an option. What is your view on whether the Reform Act is needed at this moment, and are you prepared to live with it if they decide, yeah, this is something we want to choose?
Well, these are caucus deliberations, so I must be very respectful.
They haven't happened yet, though. I'm asking you hypothetically.
Of the privacy of those. Those measures are required by law. Every caucus of a recognized party must take them up. We will do that, as we have in the past. Do it appropriately. I think members will have made
What is your view, though?
An informed judgment on that. Look, my view is irrelevant. 170 people are going to.
But you're going to get to vote too, no?
I absolutely am. But my vote, like all others in caucus, is a secret. Process.
Okay, let me go back to just how you're going to make this minority parliament work in a very brief period of time. What has the Prime Minister told you about how quickly he wants things done? Because he seems quite aggressive. And how daunting a task is that for you?
Well, it's very refreshing. Let me just say this. You know, Canadians have elected a Prime Minister who, look, I think it's wonderful to watch. You know, we see in real time the very, very clear ideas and vision of the Government of Canada as embodied by our Prime Minister. Very proud of those priorities. I think many of them needed. Clearly, the United States and the trade issue is one that commands our respect. But there are a number of other fundamental things about our economy, about housing, about the institutions of the federal government that need attention. And Mr. Carney has focused our attention on those, has made no bones about the urgency and the importance of this work. And so we're going to get at it.
Does it worry you, though, that someone who's never done this before, doesn't understand necessarily Parliament perhaps as well as you, is going to come face to face with the reality of you can't actually work as quickly as you think you can when you're dealing with the public service and parliamentary procedure and other parties?
Well, this is, I don't think anyone should underestimate, this is a person, Mr. Carney, who has experienced the federal government, the federal system of government, the parliamentary system of government in Canada and in the UK, a very noisy democracy. So I don't think he underestimates the obstacles or the challenges of governing in a democracy that lets in so many diverse voices. I think he accepts that. I think he's very, very confident about the messages that he wants to send, and you've seen him do that repeatedly. I think he'll do that in Parliament. I suspect Mr. Carney will turn out to be an excellent parliamentarian.
Okay, well, we'll see. Thank you very much for coming in. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, we're going to switch back to see, just to confirm. Yep, they are still... They are still counting votes. I can't imagine they're going to be much longer here. They can't be more than another 15, 20. I would have thought they would have been done by now at this point. Let's see if there's anything else we can tune into in the meantime while we're waiting. Because, yeah, I can't imagine how much longer they're going to take. Okay, while we're waiting for this, there's a scrum about to happen. Odd it's taking this long. Well, because they're really not, it's not just yay or nay. It's most likely to least likely or most favored to least favored. So you have to list all 6 names. So it takes a little bit longer with that process. It'd be easier if it was just write down the name that you want. Elections Canada find a missing box. Yeah. It's just two. It's probably two. It's one of the clerks and the other. I think it's just 2 clerks actually. So we're just waiting on the clerks to finish counting that. Sorry, just opening on the other monitor so I can see exactly when the ballots are done counting. We'll switch right over to it immediately. This is just a media scrum that's about to happen with some MPs. I think it's NDP leader Don Davis who's going to try and talk to reporters. I'd imagine there's going to be a couple other, there'll probably be some conservative MPs that are going to speak. Not on this clip, but it'll probably be on the one right after. I heard May was going to be speaker. Well, I don't think unofficial party individuals get to put their names down. Like last time we had an NDP speaker, right? But NDP had official party status in the last parliament. So because they lost party status, I don't think NDP or Green were able to put up ballots for a speaker. If someone knows for 100%, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's only official party status parties that get to vote, that actually get to put in the names to be speaker. Did Fergus order a recount? Oh, members are being called back to the chamber. Okay, perfect. Perfect. Here we go. So 3 minutes. We're going to find out who the next Speaker of the House is for our 45th parliamentary session. 3 minutes. 3 minutes. If you need to go grab a coffee, Go use the toilet. Do what you got to do. Hey, you have to have party status. Yeah, that's what I thought. I imagine most of the Liberals probably won't even be coming back to see who their Liberal speaker is going to be, because all the people on the ballot were Liberal. Because there's a caucus meeting going on right now for the Liberals, so all the ministers are not even going to be sitting in the chamber. It'll just be a few of the backbenchers, if any. But I think either Fergus gets it or Casey gets it. That's just my guess. Fergus again, betcha? Maybe. The only reason why I say Fergus is because you can use the excuse that he was a previous speaker. I'm pretty sure he's the only previous speaker on that list. Everybody else would be new speakers. And I think you could use the argument, whether this is conservative or liberal, if there's a previous experience in speaker when like over a third of the MPs now are new. It would be nice to have experience, although I wouldn't say Greg even got much experience on the first time out. He wasn't even... Half the time he was violating his own rules. The rules need to be changed on the handling of election ballots. They should never be removed or moved, counted on the spot. Yeah, I agree. You're talking in terms of federal election. I agree. Previous doesn't mean experienced. Yeah, good point. Good point, Peter. Well said. All right, 1 minute. And then I'm pretty sure that's all that's on the agenda for the House today. At least that's what it says on the House of Commons website, is that's all they're doing today. And then tomorrow, a speech from the throne, and then I'm assuming Wednesday is going to be our first day for question period. And Wednesdays are always Prime Minister question period days, so we'll see Carney versus Scheer. If I'm not mistaken, hopefully Wednesday is going to be our first question period day. I'm not sure when they start organizing committees, because they don't have any of that on the schedule yet. So also the first session for committees will be electing chairs of the committees. So the first committees that we get, the very first ones of them, are just going to be pretty much voting processes. How did Fergus even get reelected as an MP? It's one problem with democracy. Democracy's not perfect. You can vote in whoever you want. It's the best thing that we got, but I'd say that's one downfall of democracy, is you can vote in whoever you want. All right, here we go. Wow, I'm surprised the Liberal bench is even that filled up. Because Carney's here. I thought they were... Maybe they did a caucus meeting in between during that hour. I don't know what that beeping's coming from the stream. But yeah, maybe they've already had their caucus meeting, because pretty much right after this, Carney has to go do his media scrum with the king. So, yeah, I'm assuming Liberals had a quick half-hour, 45-minute meeting, and that was it. And there's something pinging in the Parliament. So I'm just going to mute it for now, because I don't want to sit here and listen to a ping every 10 seconds. Could be the bell is still ringing. Oh, it's the bell. That's what it is. It's the bell ringing. To let them know to come back into the chamber. That makes sense. It's the bell to call them back. Yeah. As soon as you said that, I thought, yeah, okay. Because we've heard that in committees before, too. When they're being called for voting and stuff. Yeah, it's the bell's still ringing. Okay. That's the call back to the House. Yeah, no, I got it as soon as I said it. I've only ever really heard it in committees. I've never heard it in the actual House stream. Because usually it's like muted.
À l'ordre, j'ai
Order.
devoir d'informer la Chambre.
It's been so long you
It is my
forget. Yeah.
duty to inform the House that a speaker has been duly elected.
In the name of the successful candidate, I wish to explain how the next few minutes will unfold. Une fois le résultat déjà annoncé.
Once the result has been announced, I will call on the elected speaker to walk to the bar at the back of the House of Commons. Next, the Right Honourable Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition will escort the newly elected Speaker from the bar up to here. Then the Speaker will take their seat. Now, why do we have this procedure? Well, a long time ago, when the king was unhappy with a speaker's ruling, the speaker's head was cut off. This is why we have our tradition of the speaker pretending to refuse the speakership, and the speaker will be dragged from the bar up to the speaker's chair.
Mon devoir est long. It is my duty to inform the House that the honorable member for, il est maintenant de mon devoir d'informer la Chambre que l'honorable.
It is now my duty to inform the House that it is the member for Lac Saint-Louis.
Oh, wow. Is that Casey? No, Casey's the other one. This is, wait, what's his name? Thank God it's not Fergus. Francis, thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Prime Minister. Thank you.
Ça, c'est les premiers mots que vous dites, puis après ça, vous allez faire un discours de remerciement.
Alors, honorable member.
Or
Yeah. Honorable député.
honorable members, I beg to return my humble acknowledgments to the House for the great honor you have been pleased to confer upon me by choosing me to be your Speaker.
Je vous remercie très sincèrement.
I sincerely thank you for placing your trust and confidence in me. First, on behalf of everyone, I wish to thank the Dean of the House of Commons, the member for Bécancour-Nicolet Sorel, Aldubac.
Pour son savoir.
I thank the Dean for his know-how and savvy, for his sense of humor, and for his wealth of experience in Parliament. I'd also like to thank all candidates who put their name forward in today's vote. I commend them on their inspiring speeches today.
Special mention and thank you for the member of Hull-Aylmer, who took the reins of the speakership at a difficult moment.
No, stop clapping for him. Stop. Fergus does not deserve a clap.
At the end of a mandate, when things tend to get a little feistier, I would remind members that we are at the beginning of a mandate in the selfish hope that you will afford me a little grace period. Once again, thank you for your confidence. I have few words because, well, we all have things we want to accomplish, and we've been away. Thank you, colleagues.
We'll see. We'll see how he is. He seems calm enough, but we'll see how he handles question period when things get spicy. There's the mace.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
C'est pas correct, hein? OK. Merci beaucoup. Merci tout le monde.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Rise in this House for the first time. I hope you will permit me to thank my constituents in Nepean for the great honor of being a member of this committee. And I'd like to thank Canadians, Mr. Speaker, for the trust that they have put in this government, but in all members of this great House. Hear, hear. Votre élection.
Your election shows the respect that people have in you here in the House of Commons. For over 20 years, you have served the people of Lac Saint-Louis with devotion, with wisdom, and with heart, and with dignity as well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Now, Mr. Speaker, I have much to learn from the members of this great House. I will make mistakes. I have no doubt that you will call them out for good reason. Because this House has rules, it has traditions, and it's on those traditions that our Athenian democracy is founded. Very good. Yes, we are Athens. They are Rome. On va triompher.
We will prevail. We're in the golden age of Athens.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You have my support.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Premièrement, Monsieur le Président.
First of all, Mr. Speaker, a huge congratulations to you. You've gotten the support of this House to manage this House for the next months, years. Who knows? We'll see.
To indulge myself to take this opportunity to thank the voters of Regina Capel and indeed our spouses. I'd like to thank my wife Jill for the sacrifice that she and my family make, as do all our spouses and significant others. You have just taken charge of an office that is almost as old as Parliament itself. It emerged in the Middle Ages when the Commons needed a spokesman to air its grievances to the King. A task that probably wouldn't stand up to the safe workplace guidelines that exist today. And as we heard from our Dean, until the 17th century, the Speaker's loyalty was to the Crown rather than to MPs, and they were often blamed if they delivered bad news to the monarch. 7 speakers were beheaded between 1394 and 1535, and many more were imprisoned. Managing monarchs was a delicate undertaking. One speaker, John Wenlock, during the War of the Roses, when no one could be sure who would end up as king, he tried to hedge his bets by fighting for both the York family and the Lancastrians. It didn't work out too well for him, though. He died at the Battle of Tewkesbury. But of course, he wasn't the last politician to try to be on both sides of a contentious issue. And I dare say we may find some Liberal MPs voting for things that they were very recently voting against. But gradually, the Speaker's role became one of representing Parliament rather than the monarch. And it wasn't until the Victorian era that impartiality of the Speaker became the norm. Now, it might no longer be a requirement to stand up to kings and queens, but you may find yourself having to stand up to other offices of authority. And if such a moment presents itself, we trust you will stand with those speakers who came before you, who defended this institution on behalf of the people. As I look back over the last few parliaments, we did have some trying times. We witnessed injuries from flying elbows, F-bombs dropped, and a few appearances of one member in a state of undress. I did hear that CPAC was considering putting a warning on the daily broadcast, may contain violence, coarse language, and nudity, but so far they haven't had to do that. The speakership itself has been tested, with, unfortunately, some speakers caught in the middle of scandals themselves. I have heard it said that it's all gone downhill since the last time a Conservative was elected Speaker, but I couldn't possibly comment on that. In all seriousness, though, Mr. Speaker, you are not the Commissioner of Parliament, you are the servant of the House, and that is an important dynamic. You are held accountable by the members, and each of us are accountable to our voters. Debates should be passionate. They should be lively. The lives of Canadians are changed by the decisions we make, and so it is normal that members get enthusiastic and fiery. When the stakes are so high, often the best thing you can do is allow the players to play a little bit. This is where the government is held to account. They have an enormous amount of power, And we, parliamentarians, must provide ruthless scrutiny on every dollar taken out of their pockets, every infringement on their liberties, and every single decision this government makes. Of course, every parliament has its own unique challenges and messy moments, but as Winston Churchill said, democracy is the worst form of government, except for all the others that have been tried. Monsieur le Président,
Mr. Speaker, you have our support for your speakership.
Our support and our best wishes for your speakership over this parliament. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much.
Nothing but class, man. Nothing but class.
The Honourable Member for Bailleul-Chambly. Mr. Speaker and esteemed colleagues, I would be remiss not to note that I'm slightly further away from you than I used to be, which will force us to be as courteous as possible while still increasing the volume of our voice. It'll show that when it's time for action, numbers don't mean anything. I would like to congratulate the new Speaker on our behalf. I would also like to thank voters who took part in this democratic exercise in my riding of Bailleul-Chambly or throughout Quebec or throughout the rest of Canada. I would like to note that the Prime Minister made reference to Athenian institutions and that the leader of the official opposition spoke a lot about the monarch. I thought it was going to be the opposite, to be honest. Perhaps we'll talk about it tomorrow. In any case, I would like to share my wishes to this House. We have work to do, and we hope it will be serious work under our new Speaker, a Parliament where I would like to have a bit more of a collegial approach. It would be good for us. It will be good for all members to do so. An approach that would be eminently responsible and accountable. I would like to ask all colleagues, new colleagues and old, to be the best that they can be, to compel us in my party to be as good as we can be. Of course, we'll come back upon our priorities in the next few days. You know our priorities. I want us to think in particular about the importance and the privilege of being in a democracy, because we need, I believe, to rebuild enthusiasm in amongst our voters so that they can go vote in the future for something that they want because of their enthusiasm and hope, and so they wouldn't have in the future to vote because of fear. And I think that we can do so, because in the last few minutes and in the last few weeks, I had the opportunity to talk to a number of you, colleagues, and I've already felt, especially through brief conversations with the Prime Minister and Conservative colleagues, I've felt that we do have the opportunity to have a different, renewed collaboration, which seems to be the only path towards a renewed respect that voters have in us, because they chose for us to be here. And I hope that we will be pleased and happy to undertake this privileged work. And you, Mr. Speaker, are the guarantor of that. Congratulations once again.
The Honourable Member for Vancouver Kingsway.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Monsieur le Président, on behalf of the New Democratic Party of Canada, I wish to offer our most sincere congratulations on your election as Speaker of the House of Commons. Je tiens à vous adresser nos...
I would like to address our deepest Congratulations for your election as Speaker of this House of Commons.
Thank all those who ran for this position and congratulate all returning and newly elected members of Parliament. We have a privileged position in this House. And the role of the Speaker is foundational to the functioning of our parliamentary democracy. As the impartial guardian of this House, the Speaker ensures that debate is conducted with decorum, that all voices are heard, and that the rules of Parliament are upheld with fairness and integrity. In a time when public trust in democratic institutions is being tested around the world, the Speaker's duty is to foster respectful dialogue and uphold the dignity of this House, and that has never been more important. I think we all know that Canadians are facing some of the most difficult times in recent memory. An entrenched housing crisis, rising economic uncertainty, and widespread difficulty accessing timely health care are putting immense pressures on families and communities across this country. And in addition to these challenges, we now face unprecedented threats to our independence and a trade war from the administration south of the border. Now, despite these daunting circumstances, Canadians have responded with resilience, compassion, and unity. They have demonstrated what it means to come together in times of adversity. I think there's a lesson there for all of us. In keeping with the Athenian imagery, I would say this House should have more Plato and less mediocrities. So may this House draw inspiration from Canadians' examples. While we may hold very different views on how best to address these pressing issues, we must not lose sight of our shared responsibility to work together in common purpose to defend the best interests of our country and the welfare of our citizens. Canadian voters have once again elected a minority parliament, a clear mandate for cooperation rather than constant conflict. They have asked us to listen to one another, to find common ground, and to deliver real solutions. No party holds a monopoly on good ideas, and no government is entitled to a blank check. So let us honor the trust Canadians have placed in us by rising to this moment and working together to build a more just, secure, and hopeful future for us all. Monsieur le Président, I am confident,
Mr. Speaker,
with wisdom, impartiality, and a steady hand. Canada's New Democrats extend our support and best wishes as you embark on this important chapter of public service. Les Néo-Démocrates du Canada.
The New Democrats of Canada support you and wish you the best as you start this important chapter of your public service. Thank you very much.
The Honourable Member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Merci, Monsieur le Président, et félicitations.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and congratulations to everyone, and especially the new MPs.
To congratulate our new Speaker and to congratulate all the members elected in this place, whether for the first or for our Dean of the House the 13th time. Congratulations again to every member here. I reflect on what it was like when I witnessed the first Speaker election when I was first elected, and we elected the Honourable Member for Regina Capel. And I'll never forget, the leader of the official opposition stood on that occasion. I commend this to you, official opposition. The official leader of the official opposition, the late Jack Layton, said, "We pledge never to heckle." And that was a wonderful moment. I stood on behalf of the entire Green Caucus, as I do today, and pledge again never to heckle and to do everything possible, Mr. Speaker, to make your work in protecting our rights and ensuring the effective and efficient and honorable conduct of this place such that there will be no need for warnings on CPAC or any other network. Again, to everyone here, let's try our very best. I pause briefly to congratulate the Prime Minister on his maiden speech and again congratulate him for brevity. We look forward to more speeches from our Prime Minister, from the leaders of the official oppositions, and from parties, whether recognized or unrecognized. We are all here for the same reason. We work for Canada, we work for our constituents, and with your wise counsel, Mr. Speaker, we will work hard to make this a parliament that Canadians can be justifiably proud of Canadian democracy.
Following discussions among representatives of all parties in the House, I understand that there is an agreement to observe a moment of silence following the tragic event that occurred on April 26, 2025 at the Lapu Lapu Festival in Vancouver, British Columbia. I now invite honourable members to rise. Thank you, members. I have the honour to inform the House that I have received the following message. Mr. Speaker, I have the honour to inform you that His Majesty the King will arrive at the Senate of Canada building at 10:15 on Tuesday, the 27th of May, 2025. When it has been indicated that all is in readiness, His Majesty the King will proceed to the Chamber of the Senate to formally open the first session of the 45th Parliament of Canada. Sincerely yours, Donald C. Booth, Canadian Secretary to the King. Monsieur le Président, j'ai l'honneur de vous informer que Sa Majesté le Roi.
Mr. Speaker, I have the honour to inform you that His Majesty the King will arrive at the Senate of Canada building at 10:15 a.m. on Tuesday, the 27th day of May 2025. When it has been indicated that all is in readiness, His Majesty the King will proceed to the Chamber of the Senate to formally open the first session of the 45th Parliament of Canada. Sincerely yours, Donald C. Booth, Canadian Secretary to the King.
The House now stands adjourned until tomorrow at 10 a.m., at which time the House will proceed to the Senate, where His Majesty the King will open the first session of the 45th Parliament.
Yep, see, like I said, so it was just, today was literally, that was the only thing on the agenda, was just selecting a speaker. That's done, so pretty much their work's done for today. There's going to be a media scrum, because the King's probably just landing now, or has landed now in Canada. Carney will go out to visit him, and that they're going to walk around Ottawa and, you know, go to some monuments and things like that, and talk with media briefly. We definitely will cover the throne speech tomorrow live. We'll see Parliament get opened. Pretty much there's not going to be anything going on really tomorrow either. Wednesday should be the first day for question period, if I'm not mistaken. And we'll see Carney versus Scheer, because Scheer will be acting on behalf of the Conservatives as leader of the opposition. So see you guys tomorrow. I think so. 10:15 they said we'll be live at 9:45 or 9:30 in the morning Eastern Standard Time, and we'll make sure that we tune into the Senate stream, and we'll be watching that live. And nice to see everybody coming into the chat again. We got lots of people that showed up from last year's Parliament, and I'm looking forward to a spicy Parliament this time. We've got lots of people that'll still be good on the Conservative side. We've got Brock, we've got Genuous, we've got Cooper. I think there'll still be some good spicy committees. Committees, I think, start getting formed on Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken. They might even start being formed tomorrow. But then the first committees, the first session of each committee will just be selecting a chair for the committee. So, yeah, also a huge thanks to Savage for gifting the memberships and everybody else who did super chats and things like that. Really appreciate you guys going above and beyond and supporting the channel. And yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys. That's it. I'm going to go ahead and put a couple clips out from the stuff that we were just watching now. So if you didn't catch anything that was on earlier, it'll be on the channel, clipped out, the 5 or 10 minute thing that you wanted to see. And yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take a break before I watch the scrums with the media with Carney and the King. So, all right, guys. See you tomorrow live.